Welcome, carbon-based life forms, to episode 102 of the Warhammer 40,000 podcast that goes by the identity of Look Out, Sir. My name is Dan, and it's that bit at the beginning of the show, thus the whole fact that it appears here at the beginning, where I introduce my good buddy Phil. How's it going, Philip?
And it's this bit of a show where I say, hello, welcome everyone. I'm doing well. And how are you doing, Dan? How are you doing?
I am relatively reasonable, thank you very much. The world is treating me with a good level of indifference, which is as much as I can hope for within this harsh, spinning void that we occupy.
The
I
bleak
like
abyss of the world.
The bleak abyss, yeah, absolutely. I am treated with an appropriate level of indifference that ultimately speaks to my overall hopelessness. Not hopelessness, but just pointlessness, I suppose. I am as good from my perspective as I can hope to be.
You
never
give
know.
it back as good as you get it, I feel. That indifference, it comes out through your pores. You irradiate it. You have an aura of it.
Exactly. I'm always, teetering on the abyss. But for now, here we are, here at episode 102, and everything's looking great. Right, Phil? Because we're going to be talking about what exactly?
We're going to be talking about Warhammer Plus. We're finally doing a little review. We're like 3 and a bit weeks into it, so we're going to talk about it, what we thought, what content we like, what content we don't like.
Spoilers, Phil. Spoilers.
Oh, there are some spoilers, yes. Dan will hopefully have edited like a little timestamp in there if you want to skip over spoilers, particularly for Angels of Death. For us, we don't really do spoilers whatsoever, so you can, if you've not watched it and you don't care about spoilers, brilliant. You can just carry on through.
Exactly. For those people who are intending to one day watch the entirety of, what's it called again? Angels of Death.
Angels of Death. I mean, it is the least spoilery thing really out there, so I just say it's a mild spoilers.
We just confirm what race they're fighting against, and that's about it. But we still felt it necessary. I've never dealt in spoiler culture before, so this is a whole new world to us. We don't know what is and isn't appropriate, so we're being overly cautious, but not like those that have thrown caution to the wind, Phil, and given us a 5-star review.
Come on now, Timmy. You've got your orders. You've got to do it.
But I don't want to, sir.
You've got your orders. Now get up there, get over that trench, and get me that 5-star review, and get it back here right away.
Okay, sir.
This week's 5-star review comes from where, Phil?
Oh, you caught me off guard with a very short build-up. You normally give me a word.
Exactly. That was all part and parcel of the process, mate.
It makes a nice change. You should do it more often because it keeps our intro time down to a nice.
Well, that is true.
Amount.
That is true. I like to mix it up in order to delight our fans, Phil. That's what I'm all about. Delighting the fans.
That's what we're both here for. Exactly. And in answer to your question, I'm going to say Apple Podcasts of the United Kingdom.
Phil, the difference between you and a broken watch is that it's right at least 2 times a day, but it seems that you can never get it right. For today, our 5-star review comes from Apple Podcasts of Great Britain, Phil. We do well, Phil.
So I'm right. Oh, brilliant.
No, you said the United States, you silly boy.
Did I not say United Kingdom?
Oh, did you say United Kingdom? I
mean,
heard United.
That's what I said in my head. Whether that's what I said in my mouth. Oh, you just don't listen to what I say. Do you?
It's not that I don't listen. I heard
turn off those ears.
No, I just assumed you were wrong.
Oh well, I mean,
hang on. I demand a recount. Hang on 2 seconds.
5 minutes later.
All right, fair enough. He said the United Kingdom. What a silly boob I am.
Well, that's good. I mean, I was a bit worried you were just going to bluff it and edit it out and replace it with a previous recording where I'd said that word that I'm not going to say now, just in case you do want to use it.
Well, that's true. That's true. I could dig through the archives and find that one instance where you said the United States, but I shan't because I am a man of honor, Phil. I always admit when I am wrong.
Exactly.
but I do savor those moments where I am right.
And that is why you have that Knight of the Inner Circle award for being a man of honor.
Well, exactly. I mean, I didn't want to bring it up, Phil, but now that you did mention it, yes, I have on occasion been known as one of the best gamers in the world of 40k. Not so much for my tabletop prowess as a general, but more just for the fact that I am easily one of the most likable and humble human beings that you could ever encounter.
I mean, do you think the listeners believe that? Do you think?
I believe so, because they keep coming back because they know how great I am. I mean, obviously you're nice, but everyone knows I'm the star.
But you're nicer.
Well, I mean, where's your Knight of the Inner Circle award, Phil?
I know. I came ish close, not super close. I got over halfway there in terms of you needing the votes for favorite game and favorite player.
Favorite painting, yeah. You had to get favorite army and favorite game.
Oh yeah, favorite army, favorite game. I've done at least 75% of the way there. Not as close as Tim. Tim was like one vote
Tim
away
was
from
one
winning
short,
at one time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's
rough.
very nice. You're the nicest. He's not nicer, and I'm nice. I think that's.
Well, you're being very nice now, to be fair, Phil, because normally you take this opportunity to remind me that it's not a proper Knight of the Inner Circle award because I got it when it was easier to get. Although I seem to remember you all at those same events and still not, walking home with one. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, that's true. That's fair enough. I can't argue with that logic.
And nor would, fans of the show, because as they all know, they're all here for me, the bestest one. So this week's 5-star review, Phil, comes from Apple Podcasts of Great Britain or the United Kingdom or the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, to give it its full title. 5-star review, which is, of course, a prerequisite of a 5-star review, but it's actually titled as such and reads, "Great podcast, only discovered it a few months ago," noting that this review was given to us back in May. So hopefully they've been now listening to us for at least half a year, Phil. Hopefully, assuming they've not lost interest. Oh, I'm supposed to say who gave us this review, aren't I? That's a silly, silly
that would be helpful.
Yes. All right, let's go back to that. This is a 5-star review via an individual called Sisters Player 85. Sisters Player 85. Thank you very much for your 5-star review.
I wonder what game they play.
Or what armies attached. Yeah, who knows? Clearly a Tyranids fan.
I mean, Tyranids technically are ladies, maybe. It's all a hive.
I mean, they're whatever they want to be. Asexual, I would imagine.
Yeah.
They're just good old heaps of biomass that go out into the world and become whatever they need to be to suit the occasion. And then after murdering everything, they just get swallowed up again, don't they? To go and fight another day.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Anyway, 5-star review from Sisters Player 85. Great podcast. Only discovered it a few months ago, which means now, hopefully, that they've been continuing to listen for a period of almost half a year. And we thank you for that, Sisters Player 85. Your long-term commitment to our ongoing podcast nonsense is hugely appreciated. But now has become a staple of my commute. Does that please you, Phil, to be the staple of someone's commute? You ease the passage of time?
We're always a staple of someone's commute. That is our modus operandi.
Ooh, look at you with the fancy pants words. Some people don't like long shows, but these guys provide consistent and entertaining rambles every week. That's very kind of them to say. There we go. And obviously, for those that don't like long shows, we apologize. We are what we are. Genuinely look forward to new episodes every week. A good mix of reviews and topics. And that's it. Sisters Player 85 with a rather charming and concise review. Much less so than this segment. Or rather, this segment is less concise. You see my problem here, Phil. We're a terrible mess at the best of times. But please elaborate by saying thank you to Sisters Player 85.
Sisters Player 85. One of the better factions of the Warhammer 40k game. A good choice. Well done. Congratulations. Thank you very much for your kind words. Even though we are rambling, and I feel like, is that a good thing? Should we be listening to other podcasts to see how a structured, well, laid out podcast should be done?
I don't know.
Shaking his head.
I listen to other podcasts and I'm sort of jealous of the fact that I make this podcast rather than the fact they get to listen to it. I'd say this is my favorite podcast.
Well, that's good. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
Of
I
all the
don't really
Warhammer
listen to
40,000
podcasts, so this one probably is the
Oh
one I
God, you're
listen
not
to
one
the
of those
most.
people who puts out content but doesn't actually engage with it
Oh, well,
as a
what are,
medium. I mean,
as in other podcasts?
yes, other podcasts.
Well, I tend to watch more 40k YouTube stuff. I have listened to other podcasts, not many to be honest. There's none that have hooked me in that I'm like, I'm going to subscribe to this.
Do you imagine this would have hooked you in though, Phil? If you were, out there, do you think this would have been the perfect podcast for you too?
I'm going to say yes.
I have to hope the answer is yes, because otherwise, what are we doing here? If you're not satisfied with what we're producing,
if your dulcet tones don't, I mean, I'm a slow painter, so this podcast would be the perfect thing for me on a Saturday or Sunday.
Yep.
It's going to while away at least half of the day. So that to me is good content, because I spend a lot of time just just trawling through YouTube to find videos to watch. And that's just that alone, it's a bit like Netflix. It's so time consuming. You spend most of the time trying to choose a program rather than actually watch the program. So having something that I can just always put on that's going to fill up a good 3 to 4 hours, that's a winner.
That's it. Look out, sir. Better than choice. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's exactly it.
Exactly. Look out, sir. Filling up the moments before the inevitable end.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yep, that's it. That's what we're here to provide. Yeah, all right, brilliant. Sisters Player 85, thank you very much for your 5-star review. And if you want to be as awesome and cool as Sisters Player 85, leave us a 5-star review either on our Facebook page or somewhere where 5-star reviews can be issued. And at some point in the far distant future, we will get around to reading out your 5-star review and praising you, much like we have just done with Sisters Player 85, who, again, we say thank you to. Phil looked like he was going to make a point. Have you one to share?
It's gone.
Transitional noise. Woo! Wow. All right, everyone. In this part of the podcast, we're going to talk about the varying offerings that make up the collective whole known as Warhammer Plus. What do we think about it? Myself and Phil, full transparency, are active subscribers in so much as we caved in and paid for the whole year because we like the sound of a £10 voucher and a model that we probably wouldn't really want if we just were buying it with our own non-Warhammer Plus associated pound coins. But under the circumstances, we ended up getting or hope to get one of those in the future. Which one did you go for, Phil?
I went for the Assassin because
of course you
did. I would. Why would I need an Orc for AOS?
I have absolutely no idea. But I went with the Orc, and I am as happy with my decision as I would be had I went for the Assassin. Both as useless as the other,
But both very nice models.
Indeed, I liked the booby horns on the Orcs. You don't see enough booby horns.
I mean, old Magnus has got some.
He does, yeah, absolutely. I was about to call out Magnus as another, trendsetter in the world of the booby horn. But now that Orc sits alongside him, slightly reduced in stature, but that's, no bad thing. He might be small, but it's not the size, is it? It's what you do with it that counts, I suppose.
Of course it is.
And he's complemented it slightly by having a third horn, although that's obviously not a booby horn. That's just his inner chest horn, his heart horn. That's what that is.
No, a third horn.
A third horn. Free horn. Yee. Anyway, yeah, so Warhammer Plus, Phil, we have had access to it. I have viewed, witnessed, watched almost all of it, really. Everything that's available on it, I've seen. But, there's more to it than just the video content, I suppose. There's a whole slew of different offers and opportunities available to us.
Yeah.
Obviously, most notably, this £10 voucher. I mean, how did you feel about the £10 voucher offer? Did that sway you early doors? Were you like, oh, maybe, but then you saw that sweet £10 and you were like, yeah, gotta get on that train.
feel like it's it makes it a bit of a no-brainer. It sort of feels like, oh, I'm spending a £5 this month, but getting £10 in return. So I'm making a £5 profit. Obviously, £5 of that is probably going on postage and packaging whenever I order. And I have a separate story about Games Workshop vouchers. Somewhat jaded me. We'll talk about that in the outro, no doubt. The one I teased last week. But yeah, the voucher was all right. This month, or the following month, it feels like we're getting a pin badge. Did you see they'd announced that today?
I did not see it.
You get.
So what kind of a
It
pin
is
badge?
a Blood Angels Marine from Angels of Death with the Death Watch shoulder pad as a small enamel pin badge. They didn't really announce it as the next month's offer, but they just said if you're an annual subscriber, you will get it. And they did it in a way where it implied if you're a new subscriber, you'll get it. So loads of the comments on the Facebook post were like, I'm already a subscriber, will I get it? And they were just clarifying that, yes, you just need to be an annual subscriber and you'll get this pin badge. So I don't know if that's the, because what month are we in at the moment? We're in August,
September. Now.
God,
Time is passing. Dead soon.
Exactly. I know. It will soon be Christmas and everything.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is the next month's offer. They haven't necessarily pitched it as such, but they just said, if you're an annual subscriber, you'll get it. Less fussed about the enamel pin badge. That's just like junk that is going to clutter up my desk or drawer in a desk somewhere because I'm not really a fan of badges. I mean, they look cool, but I don't wear them. So it's of no use to me. You're
not much of a badge man.
Yeah, I mean, you could be quite cynical and say the voucher is just making you spend money, which is what it will do. Probably buying something that you might not buy direct from Games Workshop. So are you really getting a saving out of it if you went to a third-party retailer, if you're in the UK and can go to a third-party retailer, for example? But I mean, it's a nice to have that they had it in there.
It depends, though, right? And if you look at it objectively, you could say that is 2 lots of free postage on small orders.
Yes.
You know?
I mean, if you get it delivered to your local Games Workshop, then you're getting free postage anyway, because that is the workaround.
But obviously you aren't benefiting from the discount rates that you might get in other locations.
No, but I mean, I think £10 is still a decent amount.
Well, at the end of the day, based on the logic that, if you were to buy, a £20 or £30 item, that's what is that? That's £10 of 30. I mean, that's
a third, yeah.
A third off.
That's cheaper than you would get from a third-party retailer.
Potentially. I mean, what's the best third-party retailer offering these days? 20%, something like that?
Yeah, I think they always say 20 to 25, but for 40k stuff, it's always about 20, I think.
Yeah, sometimes 15, sometimes nothing. But irrespective, yeah. So, it'd do all right out of it. I mean, that's the thing. The £10 voucher didn't massively sway my decision. My decision was swayed by the fact that I was already, despite the app being currently a bit rubbish, I was already an active 40k app subscriber. The amount of money I've wasted on other aspects of this hobby, I mean, in a way, the £50 that I've spent on Warhammer Plus is going to be more valuable to me than the £50 Land Raider I bought, 2-3 months ago that's still in its cellophane wrapping, the entire, 4,000 points of towel that I've got sat in a box in my garage, the never-ending laundry list of Games Workshop products that I've purchased that I probably will never even unbox, let alone, clip out and assemble. So, understand that when I talk about my kind of experience and my kind of value for money perspective, I'm already someone that is in deep with this and, will and does spend a lot of money on Warhammer related things. And in all truthful honesty, the £50 I've spent on Warhammer Plus this year is a drop in the Games Workshop bucket that I have invested throughout the year. So of everything that Games Workshop has done this year that has made me spend money on their products, this is probably the most valuable thing I've purchased from them in terms of actually getting something out of it. I've watched all the content. I enjoyed a good amount of it. they've got some issues with some of the pieces, which we'll get to in a bit, but I'm sure they'll continue to refine that and make it better. So yeah, I mean, to lay out my stall from the outset, I quite like it. I think it's fine. I think it's a perfectly acceptable little service that has the potential to get better. But I am willing to be an early adopter, and I'm willing to spend money on a, relatively lesser service than what it would evolve into, in the hopes that, I'm supporting this endeavor and supporting them in, being successful, because I really love this hobby. And unfortunately, because of that, I have very low levels of objectivity when it comes to spending money on it. But that's my take on it. I don't know what's your feels, Phil, towards the money side of things and paying 50 quid.
I mean, I think early doors, after the preview of it, we were both kind of unanimously very positive about it. It seemed like a really strong offering, that it was more than just animations. You got the vaults, you got the model, you get the £10 off, you get all this extra nice stuff, which as a package as a whole is really good. I also remember about this time last year when the Warhammer app came out, when we were talking about it maybe being a $5 or like £3 a month or something. I was like, wow, for some people that is quite a lot of money. If you're not in it, if you've not got a job, for example, but you want to do the hobby, investing in a monthly fee of a $5 kind of feels like a lot of money. So, but if you had managed to buy into that app, I think, I got on board with the 40k app eventually. So I've been subscribing for the last, this year, basically. And it's an all right app, that in itself. It's not perfect. It's okay. So, but as you say, that's
it's fine if you are also buying every codex that comes out, which I'm also doing.
Yeah,
like if you've got every codex,
that's a big ask though for a lot of people. But
absolutely.
But the ability to look up rules, while even the free version, I still think is pretty good. With all the codex unlocked content, that's even better. I would like to see a version of it where you don't need to buy the codexes, but you pay extra on top, maybe to an extra monthly amount to unlock all the kind of codex content, especially when you're not getting like the whole codex. You don't get the lore, you don't get the artwork, you're just getting the data sheets, which is a very small portion of that codex. I don't think that's unreasonable as something that you can do, but that was what, £3-4 a month, and then this is like £2 extra, so it's an easy buy-in, I think, just in isolation, just looking at those things. I think having since gotten the app and seen the sort of amount of updates, I'm slightly disappointed by a few things in terms of what the offering is and the amount of content on there. I think if they wanted to do a really strong launch, they should have had sort of a bit more of a back catalogue of videos on their.
Oh, sorry. So you're now moving into the Warhammer TV app conversation, not the. Sorry, the way you would sort of spun that made it sound like you were talking still about the 40k app.
Oh yeah, sorry. If you've made the £1 or £2 extra a month purchase for Warhammer TV, Warhammer Plus as a whole, yeah. I mean, if we just talk about the launch itself, I think myself, I don't know if did you manage to log in day one and subscribe?
Yeah, I had no issues whatsoever. I was on the same day. Interface is a bit clunky. Needs some work, but other than that, no.
Because I couldn't subscribe for a good few days. I think I kept getting an error message. It was like nurglings in the system, and it was like, okay, that didn't work. And I contacted their kind of online support chat, and he was like, oh no, I can see that you managed to subscribe via PayPal, because initially I did it via credit card, still had lots of error messages saying nurglings in the system. Tried via PayPal, which seemed to connect, but then when you go to make the final payment screen, said nurglings in the system, so I assume that didn't take effect. Anyway, basically,
did the nurgling in the system gag start to become less and less funny the more you saw it?
Well, I'll say this now. For my job, I'm a user experience UI designer, web designer type thing. So when you have an error message that is as vague as nurglings in the system, it's quite frustrating. Like, I'd much rather they just say, there's an error with your card, there's an error with our back-end payment system, it was so vague. I assume it's because they probably didn't know what the problem was themselves. And when I spoke to them, he was like, "Oh, I'll have to send this off to the tech guys to let them know." And I think the following day or 2 days later, it got fixed. And that's also when I think it started working for like Sean and Tim as well. And it sounds like lots of other people also had this problem. So there was a sort of generic problem, and it was a bit potluck. It affected some people, it didn't affect others. So it was just a bit random as to whether you were affected or not. So that's
They obviously saw from my Warhammer account that I was such a pre-existing whale.
exactly.
They were
They
like,
had to get you
got
on
to
board.
prioritize that guy. Yeah, exactly. I'm in there. You know, if they were a company that does aeroplanes, for the love of God, what is that called? Airline company. There you go. If they were an airline company, I'm gonna. Jesus Christ! If they were an airline company, I'd, I would have earned first class. I'd be getting on that plane.
Oh, you'd be getting the 3 points.
Else. Yeah, that's it, man. That's it. I'd be sitting in the lounge, enjoying my samples of plastic glue or whatever it is that Games Workshop could offer in that context. But yeah, look, I think that's the thing. It would be totally unrealistic for me to sit here and suggest that it's been the perfect rollout, and it would be entirely ridiculous for me to suggest that it isn't a lackluster service versus what you might have come to expect from other providers. But Games Workshop isn't a media provider under normal circumstances, under established circumstances. This is a new venture for them. And I think they've done enough in terms of the complementary elements to make it feel valuable. As a first-time buyer, I definitely, or as an early adopter rather, I feel like I'm getting something of value out of it. But I will admit that, the amount of content that there was there day one was really, really anemic, especially when you consider that some of the highlighted content to fill out their lackluster channel was the CG launch trailers for 40k Age of Sigmar and Kill Team. I'm like,
and the
guys,
Let's Play videos and some of the painting videos, like not the masterclass ones, the generic, this is a technical paint, this is contrast paint. What was odd about that, because I was looking for it today, is they've got some of those painting videos, but not all the painting videos that they've ever done. They could almost port over all the, because they've got the Citadel Color app / website. They've got videos on there. They've obviously got their own old Warhammer TV YouTube account. They've got loads of videos on there. So they could have, in theory, ported all of that across to be a dual place. In a way, I'd almost rather they kept them separate. So you've got YouTube for your free content. You've got the app just for your exclusive paid-for content, which is why it's like, yes, you've got your cinematic launch trailers. It's like they're sort of just getting in the way, especially once, hopefully, the content starts filling up. I did find the UI of it a bit clunky in terms of just how you're going to navigate that website at scale. Like when you're going to go viewing the videos, it's like, if you look at it like Netflix, it's like normally you have a consistent thumbnail for the series. You click on that, then you get your episodes, or the first episode or next episode starts playing. But what they've done in the Warhammer Plus app is effectively they've given you the series thumbnail, but it's of the latest episode. So you go onto that, you click it, and then you've got a little about info page, and then it says, press play. So it's like you've got an extra weird step to get to the video that you want to watch, which I find a bit odd. And there's some really, what should be to me really basic functionality, and it isn't necessarily basic, but it's to be expected because it's like things that YouTube do. Really standard video players do these functions that this one hasn't got. It hasn't got a full screen button, for example. So whenever I'm watching it on my computer, I see the browser bar at the top and things like that. And there's no button to go back just 10 seconds. And normally you've got your left and right arrows on your keyboard that also do that. Because quite often, especially with the battle reports, if you miss something, I just want to go back a couple of seconds to rewatch it, and it doesn't have that. So you've got to like manually use the slider for the time slider to actually go back a few seconds. So it's just those little fiddly things that not sour the experience, but go, this is what I would expect out the gate, even though you could argue that they are slightly more fancy controls than a regular bog standard player. But it's something I would appreciate if they had.
I think, personally speaking, I think, again, it was everything was in terms of the technical capabilities of it resided within my expectations of what it was going to be. Was it the most seamless experience? No. Did it work? Yeah. So in that respect, fair enough. But I think that's the thing. It's, and here's the other thing as well I was going to say. Obviously, it would have been really nice to have had a few series in their entirety that we could have binged, but I quite like the periodic releases of content, because I find myself able just to kind of consume it and enjoy it when it comes in. And it's one of those things. It's weird, right? I'm just not as emotionally invested in it. That's all I gotta say about this Warhammer Plus thing. Is weirdly, if I can be completely honest, what I've done is I've bought it out of weird habit, and now I've got it, I just don't care. It's like, cool, it exists, I've got it, I use it but like, I'm just not that passionate about it. It's like, cool, it's a nice to have, and that's sort of how I treat it. And maybe one day it will become this exhaustive library of great content, but for the minute it's just a few nice little bits, a few little moments. Like I say, I've watched everything on it, so I must like it to some extent, because it's content that obviously is to do with a topic that I really enjoy, and seeing that being explored in more detail, and that's all really cool. But like, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. More or less, I'm numb to it. I've spent 50 quid on something that I'm just a bit numb to, but hopefully I will continue to engage with it and sort of enjoy it as time goes on. But like I said, I appreciate that I'm in a privileged position, and I appreciate that, to me, my perspective on this is likely very different to a lot of people's. But yeah, I'm just sort of relatively, it's, is it the best thing ever? No. Is it the worst thing ever? No. It is what it is. And yeah, I'm relatively all right with that. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to be all sort of like underwhelming in this statement, but much like that statement, much like the thing, it's just a bit underwhelming. But I've got hope that it will get better. I've put my money in. I've invested in the first year. I'm going to see how it goes, and when the year comes around again, they'll probably hook me in with another actually model that I want. This time they might go along and go, finally, your plastic avatar, Warhammer Plus exclusive. And I'll be like, for God's sakes, fine, I'm back in, It's like, that. So, based on something like that occurring next year, I'll probably stick around, because they'll probably do something that appeals to my, shiny syndrome gamer, ideology that will make me resubscribe. But yeah, right now it's sort of like, I've spent the money, I'm engaging with the content as and when it is available to me, but I am not chomping at the bit to see the next episode of whatever the Blood Angels show's called.
Yeah, Angels of Death. I mean, that's
Angels of Death.
It's all right, that one. That was the one I
great.
watched pretty much last out of all the other videos. It's the one I'm least enthusiastic about. I think the Hammer and Bolter series is fantastic. I really like it. Really love that animation style.
Major spoilers.
Spoilers in the house.
Ahoy! Spoilers, mateys!
Of the 3 episodes that they've given you, which is your favorite?
Ooh, I think
of Hammer and Bolter.
Yeah, Old Bear Eye was pretty cool, but obviously we got that as a preview beforehand for free, so I haven't.
Well, it's still there. It's still one of your 3.
I think storytelling wise, that was the best, but the one I probably enjoyed the most was the very first one with the Inquisition.
The assassin.
Yeah, I thought that one was really cool. It was so nice to see some of the visuals from 40k like come to life. So the was it Caluxus Assassin with their like phase blade, just seeing that like animated
Kaladas Assassin.
That's it. Coming to life, seeing the blade kind of glow up green and stuff. That was just all pretty cool. I really liked that, and it was relatively gory, not over the top, but just about right. I thought it's like it isn't like a PG cartoon, and I noticed it more in the second Angels of Death, where they had actually had like a 15 age rating on that episode, which I can't remember if it was on the first one. I assume not. But yeah, which was your favorite out of the Hammer and Bolt series?
I really enjoyed the library one, because again, it's a side of Warhammer that you don't think about, and I like the tedious monotony of the servitude, or the life of servitude of your average Imperial citizen.
Yes, just counting books as a job.
Yes,
I thought that was. Yeah. I do like that kind of sort of everyday aspect of 40k. There were some little nods in there which I quite liked. So all the priests have like a little kind of stylized A on them, which I believe is for the administratum, which comes from Jez Goodwin's. Jez Goodwin, his old sketches. He used to have them in there, and weirdly, I've got one of the sketchbooks I was looking at like a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, "What is that A symbol?" And I think it just means the administratum. So yeah, it's interesting to see that little nod in there.
Yeah, I enjoyed as well, like the influence of chaos as well in that whole sequence. The idea that, you know, because again, in a weird sort of way, like, you know, it sort of illustrates the ways that chaos will, you know, manipulate and will kind of, you know, corrupt people. Because the idea obviously was that in the setting of Warhammer 40,000, you know, they try and sort of subdue information, and, you know, there's that speaker system. To think is to question, or whatever it is.
Yes.
To question is to doubt.
It's
to
very
doubt
like
is
1984 sort of vibes to it. Yeah,
I just thought it was brilliant, and I just thought that's the sort of stuff about, you know, that's the element of Warhammer that we don't normally really see expressed on the tabletop or in, you know, the narratives, because a lot of the time, you know, it's really easy to focus on the heroes of the Warhammer setting and to showcase, you know, the boombastic, you know, battles of Marnius Calgar versus Abaddon the Despoiler in their world-ending battle cruisers that, you know, tear reality asunder as they fight through the heavens. Like, all of that is obviously incredibly fantastical. But what I've always loved about the 40k setting is that really kind of drab, understated human suffering.
Yeah. I find it a much more, well, that was probably my least of the three. I still really liked it. I do think it's an interesting story. It's almost like a was it like Tales of the Unexpected, or what was there other shows that was about in the day?
Erie, Indiana.
Yeah, it's
not at all.
Close. Kind of Tales of it. Yeah, I'm just trying to think what it was. I'll come back to me at some point when I least expect it. But I like those little side stories, and I do find them more interesting than just Marines. And I think it kind of is in stark contrast to Angels of Death, which they've kind of led with as this is our Marine. Like bolter porn is the classical phrase that people like to use when it comes to Black Library stories. And I think that one has its own flaws as well, because of the way it's animated. It's like Space Marines wearing helmets, and when they're talking, they're sort of just nodding their heads. And it's like, this is why they shouldn't be always wearing their helmets. Like, I know people, especially gamers, get really het up when like Space Marines are modeled without wearing their helmet, because like, well, they could then just be shot in the head. It's like, why are they not wearing their helmet? It's like, because it's just more visually appealing, and when you especially in an animation where you want to hear them talk, seeing their actual face do the talking is a lot more helpful. I think from an animated point of view, it's much better to keep the helmet on because you don't have to bother lip syncing. And I think one of the criticisms that animation has had is lip syncing isn't great. And it's like, it's not that bad. And it's like, I've seen criticisms of the Hammer and Bolter one about the animation is a bit like choppy, I guess, in places. It's like got a relatively low sort of like frame rate to it. And it's like, it is very much like a kind of kids cartoon style animation, which I quite like. It sort of harkens back to when I was a kid. So I don't mind it. And I love that animation style. I think obviously they could probably whack in another, like double the frame rate and it would look even better. But that's probably going to make it a lot more expensive to produce.
Yeah, I mean, on my side of things, I quite like the animation style that they landed on for Hammer and Bolter. I think it's fine. I mean, you know, probably not the highest production in the world, but at the end of the day, you know, despite all of the, you know, money that GW make and all the rest of it, I dare say they're not spending the largest sums of money on producing these programs, you know.
Yeah, I think especially because it's like clearly like an experimental thing for them, even though it's clearly like they're launching it, they want it to be a success. I imagine if it was a complete bomb in a year's time, they would just be like, yeah, that was it, sorry. But I think they're going to make it a success, and I think it will be sort of out the gate. Like, it's almost hard for it to not be a success. So it might be, if there's a second season of Hammer and Bolter, they might have more production value to them, and the quality of the animations will go up.
Potentially. I mean, again, I don't want to speculate on whether or not it'll be a success or not. History will be the judge of that. And, you know, from my side of things, if they continue to give me compelling reasons to invest year on year, then, you know, I'll continue to do so. But, you know, ultimately, I dropped my money. I got the content. I'm enjoying it as and when I get it. But, you know, yeah, I'll take it year on year. To your point about Space Marine Blood Angel show, I keep forgetting the name of it. It's so generic.
Angels of
What's it
Death.
called again? Angels of Death. Yeah, God.
I mean, I hope
Death,
it is. Yeah. If it's not, I'm going to just look like an idiot now, aren't I?
Well, I don't think you will do, Phil, because, you know, as I say, it's generic. It's the generic Space Marine show. But, you know, I think episode 1 was stronger than episode 2 for me personally. I think episode 2, you know, everything kind of just gives way to the conflict. It's nice to see them dealing with a enemy faction that I guess hasn't been as well explored in this kind of media as other things. I think a lot of people kind of shy away when they're doing fan animations for the GSC and Tyranids in general. I think, you know, we see a lot more, you know, versus Chaos Space Marines versus Orcs. Yeah. But, you know, the fact that they've gone with GSC and the NIDS is cool to see. And I think that's kind of interesting how, you know, the events of the second episode all started escalating. I thought that was really cool. So yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I think, you know, that show is definitely more impressive than I had originally imagined it might be. You know, it's not my favorite show ever. I'm not gonna, you know, it's not in my top 5. I definitely don't like it as much as I like Hammer and Bolter, but it's fine for what it is. It's fine.
Yeah, if I remember rightly, back when they first previewed Angels of Death, even with like a teaser video, like a year ago or more, it was the one we released. You know, we weren't that fussed about. It's like it's got a very sort of almost like dated art style in terms of. It's a bit Sin City-esque with the colouring. It's definitely an improvement from Hell's Reach. And I remember Hell's Reach has got this kind of weird grainy art filter over it, which I think hides a lot of sins. So I think credit to the guy doing it. He's upped his game a lot. It's visually way better than Hell's Reach. When I was watching the second episode today, like, I was struggling a bit in places, like the kind of like the high contrast of it all. Like there's some really dark shadows in it, which sometimes hides the visuals of what's going on, especially during some of the action sequences. There are some.
The action sequences are near on impossible to follow the events of. It's just it's just a smush of high fidelity red splodges combined with just black dustiness, and it's like I've just no idea what's going
to
on.
me, my favorite bits were like the space scenes, seeing the space station, the battle barges, and even like the kind of ship's captain, and like the more human elements. To me, I find always much more interesting than just generic Space Marines.
This has been a common complaint of mine with the Black Library novels, though, in so much as the most interesting stuff that ever takes place in the Black Library novels is always the stuff where it's the character interactions and the actual kind of stuff before the battle. Because, I remember I was reading, or rather the audiobook version of the Devastation of Baal, and all the stuff leading up to the events of the Devastation of Baal were really interesting. But if this audiobook was 10 hours long, 3 hours of it is interesting exposition, and then 7 hours of it is Dante flies through the air, murders a Tyranid, then he gets knocked over, but don't worry, he's Dante, he's better than that, he murders another Tyranid. It's just completely, there's no stakes in anything in those kind of stories when you're following Space Marines around, because they're just too good. And, it always sort of feels their way with that sort of stuff. Now, I think admittedly with the way that they've set up the premise with, the GSC and the way that they, attack and, attack the infrastructure as well as the communications, as well as actually on the battlefield, the misinformation and how they kind of showcase that taking place actually look quite interesting. So I think that was quite a good decision. But yeah, again, this is the thing. I just think as it goes, it's fine. I genuinely am okay with it. I'm looking forward to the next episode. I'm hopeful that they'll take stock of what happened in episode 2 and actually give us a bit more, spoken dialogue, and give us something to kind of really kind of sink our teeth into, and get more invested in the characters and just be more excited about how the story is going to develop. I really hope it just doesn't devolve into endless fighting.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it is very action-centric, but at the same time, they did have a Black Library author do the writing, so you'd hope it wouldn't just be that. There was a funny scene that...
Although based on my just moments ago example, maybe it will be.
Yeah, I guess it all depends on which author they've got to do it. I thought it was it ABD, but I can't... Or was it ADB? Yeah, I can't remember who it was that they got to do it. There was a funny scene that made me chuckle, though, where the Gene Stealer cults are trying to infiltrate the ship via the docking arm, and the doors are closed and they can't get in, and then they just shoot up the console, and all of a sudden the doors start opening again. And there was a bit of a more of a, but it was sort of funny. It's such a 40K, not 40K, it's such a sci-fi trope that you just shoot up a console and suddenly the door opens. So I didn't know if it was like it was a bad thing or if it was like a humorous thing. I think ultimately it was probably a bit of both.
Has there ever been anyone in the world of sci-fi who's taken a moment like that and then had someone shoot the console and then go, well, now what are we going to do?
I'm sure
well done, genius.
Yeah, I'm
like,
sure there's got to be some like parody thing
Yeah,
where it's like,
it
no,
has
now it's
to
just
have happened
locked
somewhere.
and now we can't fix it because you've
Yeah.
destroyed all the wiring.
Yeah. Yes.
And there was another bit I found a bit odd, which was when they're having the showdown with the guard and the Space Marine's like eyeing him up, and then he's like, whatever, and just starts shooting them. And I was like, was this unprovoked, or did he see that they had like spiky teeth or something, or that something wasn't right with them?
Because the implication is because he served on the Death Watch that he was able to identify that they were GSC before.
Okay, right. I just went over my head.
Yeah, did you not notice the whole "I'm a member of a Death Watch" thing?
Oh well, I saw that bit, but I didn't get the.
You didn't put two and two together that a member of the Death Watch might know a thing about fighting Xenos.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, is either poor storytelling or I'm just stupid. It could, or a bit,
or both.
Yeah, half of one, a dozen of the other. Like it could have been either.
I'm gonna need to. You know what we are also gonna have to do now, Phil, for the first time in forever. We're going to actually have to put a spoiler warning at the start of this segment.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, that's fair enough. I think if you haven't watched those episodes by the time Saturday rolls around and this podcast is up,
Well, I think there's probably a few people out there who might be waiting for the whole thing to be complete so as they can watch it in a complete thing. But if that is the case,
the
then we
thing, I don't
apologise.
think we've really spoiled anything that wasn't in the very early trailers where they showed you it's Marines versus Gene Stealers. I mean,
well, no, you knew it was Marines versus Nids. You didn't know that the GSC were rocking up and causing mayhem to get things started, although you could assume, I suppose.
yeah, I guess. Well,
But that would be an assumption based on
let's put
a
a
logical
little
conclusion.
spoiler warning in there at the beginning.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
I will. What I'll do is I will do a little fade transition for before the spoiler begins and say, hey, just so you know, this will be a bit of spoilers. And then I will then do a fade transition now.
False teeth from beyond the stars. They came from outer your mouth.
And that indicates that the spoilers are over. So we're not going to talk about spoilery things anymore. So there you go. That was our thoughts and feelings on some of the narrative content.
Should we do...
How are we feeling?
Oh, go
on. I was going to say, how are we feeling about the bat reps and the painting?
Yeah, let's do the painting tutorials first because I think there's less to say on them. It's like,
yeah, they're good.
They're good. I think the thing is like I've watched them for the sake of watching them. I've actually not watched the face one yet because it's like I'm only really going to watch them when I need to follow a tutorial. When I'm painting faces, I'll follow the painting face tutorial. When I need to know how to paint black armor, I'll follow the painting black armor. I'm not every week going to suddenly go, oh, I just feel like watching Louise paint some models and have it on in the background for the sake of it. Whereas you can do that with the battle report. That's basically a resource that you go to when you need something. So for me, having more of those videos up front would have been way more beneficial, especially since coinciding with Warhammer Plus going up, they took down Darren Latham's old YouTube channel, which was the equivalent heavy metal painter masterclass type videos. And he had a bunch more up there. So I hope they do similar kind of videos, like he did one on like hazard cable, the stripes, how to do eyes, glowing eyes, gemstones, a bunch of different colored armor, faces, and other things like that. So I would love it. I would have loved it if they had more up front. But beyond that, I can't really criticize it. They're really good videos, and they just need more of them, basically.
Yeah, and they will do in time. I think, the painting videos were fine. I think the battle report stuff is done to a good level of production in places. They had some audio issues in the first of the 40k.
Who was that?
Bat reps.
Oh, can't say.
Well, there were just lots of instances of awkward silence that didn't really make much sense. Like, unless they've gone back and actually kind of swapped out the video files since then, but they had a lot of moments of like awkward silence where it felt like there should be some kind of background audio, but there was just
nothing. No, I did hear some people say about music, and I was like, oh, but there is music, but it's just not all the time.
Yeah, and I think, look, at the end of the day, these are mild gripes, right? I think at the end of the day, the things that were extraordinarily great about the bat reps that they were doing for 40k is the quality of the armies, the quality of the terrain. It's a shame that they're playing on mats, but I understand the relative practicalities around that. But I would have loved to have seen them playing on more thematic boards, with taking advantage of more three-dimensional surfaces and something a little bit more visually exciting than just mats. But obviously, what the mats are enabling them to do is to obviously give a more kind of, accurate experience to what a lot of people are obviously getting when they're getting into 40k. It's more in line with, the product that GW kind of promotes and sells now with their own range of card battle mats. So I understand why they've kind of gone for that. But
those mats are the ones I use down at Warhammer World. So they've got that, because weirdly it lines up perfectly on the camera, especially in that first video. So you've got your sideboard created by the slightly larger mat size is all that kind of blue style graphic. has the outline of where the dice tray goes, and then has the logo over side. So when they do that top-down camera, it all lines up perfectly and looks really good. One thing I noticed that doesn't work very well on the second video, which is where they do, I think it's like 1,000 points, it's like incursion size.
It is.
The orientation of the printed mats is like portrait, basically, rather than landscape. So when you're trying to watch the top-down game, the actual tabletop game is being played in like a third of the screen, and you've got all this space to the side because they haven't effectively rotated the camera around, so the table is filling up as much of the video screen as possible. And again, I think there's something to be said about like the top-down views kind of handy in places, like especially when they're doing movement, deployment, but it sort of feels like when they're doing the actual like rolling the dice, you're looking people shooting at each other. They could do some really cool cinematic, camera down, eye level shots, a bit like how they do the intro to each of the armies, which is, I think, the strongest aspect of the battle report. When they introduce the armies, they've got these cool graphics come up. They show you all the models. The models are painted fantastically. They've got like a cool voiceover who's one of the voice actors who does all the audiobooks as well. So that's really well done. But yeah, when they just switch to effectively a streamer style top-down camera, I think it sort of does it a bit of disservice because they've clearly got the ability to do much better stuff. Although some of the graphics that pop up, like when people are dying, stuff's being taken off the table, they've got these overlays come up. I think they're all really good. I would say the second video where it's Louise with orcs is the weaker of the two, because I think the quality of the orc army just isn't as well painted as the armies that you see in the first video or the blood angels in the second video. So that was a bit disappointing, not necessarily disappointing, but just like, how, because it's like they've got access to heavy metal armies, they've got access to the Games Workshop, they've got access to the whole studio. You should expect these to be the very best painted armies. I thought,
well, they used the Blood Angels were the studio Blood Angels, right?
I think so, yeah. Whereas the orcs looked slightly lower in quality and had a lot of kit bashes in them, so they used
which I
Savage.
liked.
I did like it. I just didn't think the paint scheme was as to a higher standard as to the others, which was just noticeable.
Yeah, but I don't think that's necessary. I mean, it really that, and I suppose you've touched on the nerve there, right? It's like, what is this battle report system in service to? Are they trying to produce the most high quality bat reps possible? In which case they should be using their studio forces. And, if in doing so, we can forgive, some of the lesser armies that they're using, or some of the poorly optimized forces that they're using within, certain kind of competitive ideologies. But also you can kind of almost look past some of their tactical decisions. I mean, I was watching the bat rep with the orcs and the blood angels, and still for the life of me, given all the rules that orcs have access to, I could not think of any reason why you wouldn't jump within 9 and chance the charge. Like, it made absolutely no sense to me that they had opted to jump the unit of orcs, hide them behind a wall that was a little bit further up than where they were already, and then sort of have them in a relatively inconsequential position for the following turn. And I think that's the thing, is like, to me, it's like that orc army, should have just jumped into the face of their opponent and just gone full aggro straight away, because that would have probably been the undoing of the Blood Angels. If
I guess it's that thing of, is it meant to be more sort of friendly, casual games? Is it meant to be bleeding, cutting-edge competitive videos? It's also interesting to be like, who are these armies? Like, because to me that didn't look like Louise playing her own personal orc army. I assume she's playing an orc army that belonged to someone else.
I mean, it could have been hers. I mean, who knows? I mean, I would assume it was, but It's difficult to say, right? And I think that's the thing. I just think I like what they're trying to do with this. I think there is potential for it. I just think the problem is that I'm trying to understand what the audience is for it, because at this moment in time, it's like you're not being super duper competitive with it, and you're not, using studio armies, and you're not playing a consistent style of game. Or you are sticking to like the GT mission packs and so on and so forth. So I don't know.
That thing is the bit that almost surprises me the most, that they would lead with GT missions, and I think maybe they're doing that to sort of appeal to the YouTube crowd that watches battle reports is predominantly GT missions, but it's like I'd much rather they did anything but that, because you can get GT mission pack bat reps anywhere. Just look, like literally turn your head around and there's one there wanting to be played in front of your eyes. Whereas if they did some like really interesting custom narrative missions, I think that would be so much more interesting. And I hope they lean into that a bit more down the line once they kind of get their feet. Because I think that they're good. They're in a really solid sort of point to start off with. I'd just like to see them be a bit more narrative, have some slightly better camera angles. I like that it's Patrick versus someone else each week. I mean, I imagine maybe one of them will be Peachy next if they're going into that kind of Warhammer TV team of people playing. It'd be more interesting if they also get, people from White Dwarf, people from within the studio, the designers, developers sort of coming along and playing as well. That would be interesting. I saw a couple of people point out that they did get some rules wrong in that second game. So the Blood Angels didn't ever use their +1 to wound in combat on the charge, which is their standard like chapter trait. So I'm surprised they missed it. But then at the same time, I imagine Blood Angels isn't necessarily Patrick's army, so you could forgive him for maybe not having learned those rules off by heart. But potentially that's something.
Yeah, but again, it depends, right? Because it depends what you demand from these things. It's like if you're going to do bat reps, that you sort of want them to, to observe all the rules
standard. And so I think the way Tabletop Tactics does it is really good. So when they do record errors, they sort of fix it in post, where they have a little sort of screen come up and say, "Oh, just so you know, we got this part wrong. Wasn't a big deal in the game." So just to make people aware of the correct rules interaction if they miss something out. So I think that even from a learning point of view for like a sort of beginner player, having those things in there, even if it's just a sort of own up to a mistake, I think is really useful.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things with all of this is like, it's all well and good, doing it for fun, but then, it's like know your audience. Like if you're going to get into that space, do it the best. It's like, because a lot of people will look at these for kind of reference, and in a way, whether they mean to or not, a lot of people are going to look at these bat reps and think about them or observe them as a way of sort of Games Workshop setting the tone for what they imagine the game should be.
And even in terms of like rules interactions, I've already seen people go, this is the official Games Workshop videos. If they're playing a rule in a certain way, this is how it's meant to be interpreted. So you could see some kind of rules lawyering leaning in towards these videos to be like, they've set the precedent here. But you could also say the other argument is, this isn't the rules writer team. These aren't people writing FAQs. They are effectively the media arm of Games Workshop. So if they get rules wrong, well, they're doing that. That's not setting a precedence for everyone else when it comes to playing their games. But you would hope that this should be the tone and the style in which games are meant to be played on a kind of general casual basis, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Again, if it's entirely casual, then fair enough. But again, it's sort of, in a weird way, it's almost strange that they don't almost make their intent clear in that regard. I think, again, it's one of those things where I'm like, it just feels like it's a weird fit.
Yeah, I mean,
And
if they want to do like a sort of tournament series as like this is our kind of competitive try hard, we're going to bring our most killer lists, we're going to play it by the book. Like they can do that. Like I'm sure there's scope within the battle reports to do that side as well, but it should also be, as you say, clearly separated and labeled. These are our tournament style games where we play our GT mission pack and it's all about strategy. Whereas these games over here are sort of more casual games. They're much more narrative based. You know, we're reenacting like an eternal mission from the past, like a famous event. Those are separate things. So you know what you're getting into when you want to watch it. And speaking of which, one thing I do like about the videos is when they're like deploying armies and making moves, they've got like little voiceover or, you know, talking heads to cameras explaining why they're doing stuff. And I like, as they're playing stratagems, the stratagem rule comes up on screen. So if you want to pause it and read it to double check what they're doing, I think that's all like really nice kind of quality of life things that especially when it comes to that aspect of it, other YouTubers aren't doing. So that's like an extra layer on top that I think is like a really nice touch.
Yeah, agreed. I think that no one doubts that the production is great. I just think that's the thing, isn't it? It's almost like they should have just gone, screw it, we're just going to lean into narrative and we're just going to play missions from the Warzone books. You know, we're going to do a Warzone Charadon scenario. We're going to do these things just to try.
Well, one of the things that was striking when it came to that second game with orcs is like none of them are the new orc models. It's like you're literally bringing this out the week that you're releasing the new orc codex. They don't actually qualify whether they're using the new codex or not. I assume they were.
They are, because a lot of the stuff in it were, so the Savage Orcs were in place of Beast Snaggers.
Is that what it was? Okay, I sort of overlooked
Yeah,
that.
so all of those Savage Orcs were supposedly Beast Snaggers.
It's a bit odd. It's like you've got one, the one company that could roll out a Savage Orc army with like the big war squigs, like the giant sort of monster truck vehicle of a squig off or whatever it is. Or, you know, they should have that army fully fleshed, painted out like they have the heavy metal version. And I do wonder if to an extent they don't want to use the heavy metal quality, because these are like the box art, the most precious minis they have that are quite often held together by Blue Tack, is what the photographers told me when I spoke to him, because quite often they do multi-part bits, so a lot of pieces are held together by Blue Tack, so they're super fragile. So I can understand them not wanting to use those, but Games Workshop should have the Games Workshop army painters paint up a Beast Snaggers army. I'm sure they've done that for, you know, either the book itself or just because they need it for promotional material. So it's like, why not use that? Why not lead with that straight off the bat as like this big showcase thing? Like, if anyone's got the capacity to do it, it's Games Workshop. So it's a bit odd that they kind of rolled out a relatively old style army with a couple of Savage Orc proxies for Beast Snaggers.
I think they also forgot that Savage Orcs have a 6-hub invuln in that bat rep as well.
Yeah.
Oh, not Savage Orcs, sorry.
Beast Snaggers. Yeah, I think there were a few rules that were missed, but it's like, understandable, but yeah, they. But
is
not
it though?
Yeah. I mean, the individuals playing it, you could understand that they might not pick up on stuff, but they should really have the resources to either have someone there who does know the rules inside out, helping them along to make sure it's all correct, or in post-production, someone's watching and going, "Oh yeah, actually, you've missed this rule out." I mean, you're not going to spot every single rule, battle report's always going to be littered with some mistakes, no matter how hard you try. But I guess there were some like glaring mistakes in that one. I mean, let's see how it goes as it goes in the future. I mean, next week there's no battle report, is there?
This week or next week?
So next week they've announced there's an Angels of Death video. There's a Lawmaster. So Wade is finally doing his first Abaddon Lawmaster video. That's coming out. And there's a bunch of White Dwarfs for the Vault, which we still need to talk about. And a couple of like old campaign books, I think, for the Vault as well. But that's it which is odd that next week there isn't a battle report. There's no Hammer and Bolter, which is a bit of a shame because that's the one I like out of all of them.
Yeah, they've been absent with the Hammer and Bolter updates, haven't they? Maybe they'll kick off week after next.
Yeah, so my theory is they plan to do like one of everything in sync, but the problem is we had a bunch up front. So Hammer and Bolter, they gave us 3 videos straight away, which is why there isn't one next week, because the third one is Older Bearlie, which we've effectively already got. With the battle reports, we've already got 3 battle reports in total because they gave us AOS one and a 40k one, which I'm assuming is week 1 and 2 that they gave us straight away. Week 3 we've already had, which is why when it comes to the third content update, we're not getting one. Whereas Angels of Death has been literally 1 a week, so that's why we're getting a third one. So by next week, admittedly we've only got 1 Lawmaster video, but there will be 3 painting videos up there, 3 Hammer and Bolter, 3 battle reports, 3 Angels of Death, 1 Lawmaster video. So with the exception of Lawmasters, which I think is delayed due to Wade being ill, there's 3 of everything. So I think the reason why we're getting less next week is just because we've had some stuff up front, which is a bit annoying. I really hope that they're much more consistent about releasing the videos and that you get at least 1 battle report every week, 1 painting video, 1 animation of one kind. It would be less of an...
Yeah, seems fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, it would be less of an issue if there was a bit more of a backlog to start off with, but at the same time, they're just having less of a backlog and just rolling it out weekly.
Yeah.
And then what did you think about the Vault stuff? Have you looked at that yet?
Nah, I haven't engaged with it. I got all the old books that are in it. I've got Wrath of Magnus sat right next to me. I've got all of it in a book form with the rules in it. Can you believe it?
Yeah, so this is the thing that I was actually most disappointed about. And I double checked by going back to the old preview video when they talked about the animations. And Warhammer Plus.
We speculated at the time, and I actually said they'll probably take the rules out, but you seemed adamant that they wouldn't.
I don't know. It feels odd. It's just disappointing that they don't have the rules, and it's partly from...
Well, it just confuses people, though, doesn't it? That's the problem. It's like, again, on the assumption that everyone's an idiot, having the rules in there confuses people. So just don't have the rules in there, because then people don't look at it and go...
Here's the thing. They give you the full White Dwarf content, and those White Dwarfs also have rules in them. So what will they do when they put... And I think most of it's all relatively newish White Dwarfs, bar Visions, which is all... There's no rules in them anyway. They're just all photos.
No, of course.
So yeah, what happens if they give you a White Dwarf that's clearly an 8th edition rule set inside? Should they take it out for clarity? It just feels like it's less value for money. I'd rather have a book that says this is 8th edition rules, not 9th edition, but just give it to you for context. And partly, and selfishly, it's because I have some of those books. I've got the Gathering Storm books. I would quite happily sell them on or give them away. It's just because my house is tiny. I need the space. I need shelf space. It's currently cluttered with old rule books from old editions and old White Dwarf magazines. In theory, I can start getting rid of and just dumping the White Dwarfs, because actually I've got a digital copy now via the Vault. But yeah, when it comes to Gathering Storm stuff, I'm like, I kind of don't want to get rid of them, because yes, I've got the lore aspects, but it's kind of also nice to have the rules, even if you're not ever going to use them. Although we do sometimes talk about...
We'll use them.
We do talk about having old games of 7th edition.
And we will.
And then when it comes to the updates for the White Dwarfs, it's like they're giving us all the White Dwarfs from this year. Not all of them, but like they've given you up to like June, I think, from next week, which is really good if you're not a subscriber from White Dwarf. If you're like me that does subscribe for White Dwarf, it's like it's sort of making my subscription to White Dwarf pointless. It's like, occasionally you get cool physical things in them, which is actually something weirdly they've coincidentally been doing this year. Loads of cool stuff, like loads of transfer sheets coming and stuff like that. And I think they need to do that, because ultimately, why pay like 60 odd quid a year for a White Dwarf subscription if you're already paying 50 quid and getting a digital copy of that magazine? Yes, it's 1 or 2, maybe 3 months later than it comes out, but so what? Like, there's sometimes rules in there, but none of them are ever like super urgent, are they? Like, the index stuff is cool, but if you really needed an index, you can go out and buy that one magazine. But most of the time, it's just cool content to read. Why not just do the digital version? It feels like they're kind of doing over the White Dwarf team, to be honest, because it's making people want to. It's giving you less of an incentive to sign up to the White Dwarf magazine.
Also, you could argue that they are securing their longevity, because I'm sure magazine sales are in decline, even one as specialist.
Well, this is the thing.
White Dwarf, so having
a double-edged,
having it go digital is not.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. It's like it makes the offering of a White Dwarf subscription worse, but it makes Warhammer Plus better. It's like, if you're getting all the latest White Dwarfs in Warhammer Plus, that makes Warhammer Plus way better value for money now, because you're effectively getting a 60 quid White Dwarf subscription rolled into it that's slightly delayed. Like, that's really cool.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I suppose a lot of people like the tactile nature of these.
Well, same. Yeah, I like to sort of read them in bed. It's like, I can't really do that on a tiny mobile screen, because I don't have like a.
I mean, you can.
Oh, you could, yeah. I could have my laptop, I guess, because I don't have.
If anything, it'll be much easier.
Maybe, but yeah,
you can turn the bedside light off. You can just strain your eyes within the illumination of your screen.
I guess for me, it's like having them adding. So next week they're adding in like the last 3 or 4 months of White Dwarf magazines. It's like, for me as a Vault member, that's a bit useless. It's like, I've already read them quite recently, in fact. So to have them there is. I don't care. Like, it's not of no use and value to me. If they had suddenly produced 4 issues from the ether from the 90s, like really old White Dwarf issues, like that would have been more fantastic for me. Like, that's to me what.
Yeah, but they will eventually, right?
Oh, I know. That's well, you hope.
And I think the thing is,
you don't necessarily know, because they've not added anything beyond the last like 4 years on there. Like, I think the Visions magazines are the oldest things on there, and they're probably like 4 years old tops, I would have thought.
Yeah, well, no,
maybe
they're
5.
probably older than that, mate. I think they were. I think they introduced Visions when White Dwarf went weekly, which will be like 2014.
Yeah, okay, maybe a bit older then, because it was definitely when early doors of me getting back into the hobby, which was, I keep saying 7 years ago, but probably more like 8 or 9 now.
Yeah. I love the fact that Visions is in there, though. I mean, going back through Visions is such a lovely thing, because it's such a wonderful little time capsule for the hobby, because again, it's the early years of Age of Sigmar, right? I think Age of Sigmar wasn't even a thing when Visions started. I think they were in the end times of
it would have been
Warhammer.
Yeah, I think it would have been about then for sure.
So, I mean, that's the thing. I think having access to Visions is cool. Having, this here is great. I mean, obviously, for someone like yourself who is already an established hardcore consumer of some of these elements, you're not necessarily getting all the value out of this. But, the fact remains that for people who haven't, been able to access all of this stuff, who have maybe joined the hobby in the last couple of years, being able to look back at, Visions, for example, is super cool. And, maybe people just haven't been buying White Dwarf, and now they've got access to
this is the thing.
This,
I suspect that being a consumer of White Dwarf is super niche within the hobby. I think more people would subscribe to the 40k app than subscribe to White Dwarf. That is my guess. So I think for a lot of people, this is great content that you can now suddenly access that you might not have read before. Because I quite often see the complaint about whenever they do an index rule, it's like, it's rules locked away in a magazine that I've got to buy, even though you could always buy a digital version of it separately if you really want to get those out print rules. Like when they did the Assassins and the Harlequins for 8th edition, they were quite big, important rules for people that played those armies. Whereas some of the, Index Astartes like Blood Ravens, there's a couple of people that play that. But it's not like a big demographic by any stretch.
But yeah, no, the Vault's fine by me. I don't have, I'm one of those people, Phil, believe it or not. I throw away issues of White Dwarf.
Well, I need to, but I feel bad about.
Just do it, Phil.
I feel bad about doing it. I feel like I should give them away to people because
no one wants them.
It's like burning books. It's like they're.
It's not like burning books. It's like throwing away a magazine.
I know, but they're really cool magazines. Even as a kid, I've still in my parents' loft got tons of the old White Dwarf magazines because I could never give them up. And every time I do, I just spend hours flipping through them, just going down memory lane, going, the nostalgia hits. And that was even when I was like in my 20s, looking back at them from when I was like 15 or whatever. So.
Maybe at some point, Phil, you need to do a Vault video of your own, showcase your old treasures. We can do a little, show and tell in Phil's parents' home.
Exactly, I'm sure they would love that. They're desperate for me to get rid of them, and I think they're going to try and pass them off to my cousin's son, because he's now into the hobby and he's like 8 or something. Whether he will find much use of these super old, outdated White Dwarf from the 90s, who knows? But it sounds like it's going to go to him.
It's remarkable going back and looking through like the Vision ones when you don't see a Primaris Marine, and that was all of 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Imagine what it must be like going back to the old 90s White Dwarfs and seeing that, They don't even have plastic multi-pose Space Marines. It's like just madness. But no, look, I mean overall the Vault is fine.
Yeah.
I think, again,
I suspect it will get really cumbersome as they add more magazines because there doesn't seem to be any like categories. It's just like a splurge of thumbnails on one screen that you can scroll through. So I hope there's going to be some UI improvements over time. I hope there's going to be some ways of like favoriting stuff, maybe, or at least sorting and categorizing them in some kind of way so you can navigate through them a bit easier than what it currently is. I mean, it's fine for now, and same for the videos. But I think over time, once there's a lot of content on both of these, it might become a bit unwieldy unless they tweak the design slightly.
Yep, no, agreed. But, for now, it's fine. And I think that's really my overarching statement on Warhammer Plus. It's fine. I sort of said it from the outset. It's not massively concerning me, but it's fine. I think, across all the different services, it's nice to have. And, I'm sure when I get my triple-horned, Orky boy, I'll be perfectly happy to add him to the forces of my slowly growing destruction Age of Sigmar force. And I'm absolutely fine with it. But I mean, this is the thing. I wish I felt more strongly about it because, in a way, I'm envious of everyone who's so passionate one way or the other. Because I just don't care that much about it. I own it. I use it.
I guess here's the thing. Would you recommend it to someone who hasn't subscribed? You should get it. It's good.
I don't know. Depends. Why haven't you subscribed?
Well, I have, so I can't give you a.
Play the part of this character that you've created for me here. Why have you not subscribed?
Oh well, I just wasn't sure. I wasn't sure. I was a bit on the fence.
That's probably not. It's probably not for you then. Don't worry about it.
No, right, okay.
It would probably be my take on it. Like, if you're not sure, then you probably know the answer is no. I think the thing is, let's be real. 2 years from now, it'll probably be a really compelling proposition for someone to jump in and spend the money on. Right now, it's for lunatics like me who just are just stupid. Like I do this all the time with Games Workshop. I've supported them through lots and lots and lots and lots of very weird instances. Back in 2012, 2013, when they shut down everything and didn't talk to anybody and, were just behaving ridiculously, I still played because I love it. For better or worse, this game, this ecosystem, this Warhammer thing, is bigger to me than the company that creates it. It's the community and the people and the whole thing that I enjoy. And at the end of the day, whatever I think about Games Workshop, and to be fair, what I think of Games Workshop is mostly ineffectual. I just think it's fine. It's a company. It exists, but it makes something that I'm incredibly passionate about. And for that and that alone, I'm a diehard fan who'll support them regardless, because the all the nice positive things I get out of Warhammer 40,000 far outweigh any frustrations I've got with Warhammer Plus. It's fine. But if you don't feel as strongly as me, and I really hope you don't, because I'm aware that my position is not a healthy one, it's fine. Just don't bother. No one cares. Like, and you shouldn't care that much about it either. Just don't worry about it. It's like, you want it, great. If you don't. I don't know. I don't feel like we need to be all conspiratorial about it, or all one way or the other about it. It's just, it exists. It's doing what it's doing. Engage with it if that's what you want. Don't if you don't. And if you don't, all power to you. And if you do, great. Join the club. Join me in my numb world of indifference.
Lovely. Yeah.
What do you reckon, Phil? What would you do? Phil, I'm not subscribed. Why should I subscribe?
Well, this is the thing. If you're not subscribed, it's like, are you happy to pay a $5 for like 10 videos a month?
I mean, sure, why not? It sounds all right.
In which case, it's probably for you. If you're like, I really want to just be able to binge watch a series, or I want access to like 50 painting videos for, most bang for your bucks, then hold off, wait. It's like, if you really want to get that assassin or orc model, wait 8 months. Subscribe, then you'll still get access to those models. You'll then get that model in another 8 months' time on top of the already 8 months that you waited. So or 12 months on top of the 8. Maths. But that's the thing. It's like that model's still out there and waiting for you. You just need to get it before the end of this time next year, when they'll change the models for new ones. That's the thing. You do pay a premium for being an early adopter to get all these videos the moment they come out. Yeah. If you can wait 6 months, there'd be a ton of videos. You can just get subscribed for like 1 month, gorge yourself on 50 animations, watch all of the painting tutorials, do it all in like one mad like painting frenzy weekend, like you're on a stag, but it's just you in your shed painting away furiously while watching all of these videos, and then unsubscribe, and then you've got, you've paid a $5 and you got to enjoy yourself. But yeah, so I think
that's assuming they're not going to do some kind of free trial period as time goes on as well, which will almost certainly come into existence
based on how they did the beta sort of freebie bit for the regular 40k app. Hopefully they will. It's a bit odd, like when they gave you Old Bear Eye, it's like, why didn't they just give you a week free on the app to watch those first initial videos instead, to kind of get people signed up to the whole app and stuff like that? I'm sure they come up with other offers over time, and it'll be interesting to see what these other free monthly kind of cool things are. One thing we didn't talk about, and we can talk about it in the outro maybe, is one of the perks is kind of get some cool bonuses for going to their events. Assuming you can actually get the tickets. So we tried to go to the doubles event.
God, yeah.
That was a complete nightmare. So there's no there's no priority booking system for a Warhammer Plus member to get access to those tickets. So who knows what the bonus will be for those that did get tickets that are going to those events. That'll be something to find out.
It'll hurt me deeply if they are something meaningful and impressive, because I have obviously, like you and Richie, we tried really hard to get those Warhammer World tickets, but
we did.
Yeah, it just was impossible.
Yeah, and that was, so we tried. We signed up. We were there on Eventbrite for like half an hour, clicking away, refreshing, being told the event is not available, and then about half an hour later, it said it was sold out. And I've heard of a few people get tickets, so they didn't have a problem. But obviously, we had technical issues, which meant we couldn't sign up, which is just a sort of general sort of bad feels, a bit of a rubbish experience. Ultimately, what should have been a fun experience for all of us to go to Warhammer World together, to play some games, ended up just being really frustrating one, going, we can't even attempt to buy a ticket. And it was just a bit frustrating. A bit like when I was trying to sign up to Warhammer Plus, and it was just frustrating that I couldn't on day one because I really wanted to.
Here's the thing, mate. It's gotten popular, isn't it, this Warhammer 40,000 malarkey? It's
crazy popular.
Certainly
yeah. So it's the same weekend as the London GT, which is where, if anyone is playing competitive 40k, we'll be there. So despite that there's a massive event happening down in London, they still managed to sell out pretty quickly for the Warhammer World events. Yeah, so it's sort of amazing. Goes to show probably in the space of sort of this time this year to last year, like I guess it's gone even popular, even when people haven't been able to play.
Well, I think that's what's driven the popularity, though, right? Is that people want to go to Warhammer World because a lot of people may have gotten into 40k and absorbed a lot of 40k content online during the pandemic when they couldn't get out there, and much like us back in the day, they heard about the Holy Grail. They're thinking, I need to get myself to Warhammer World and then, play in an official Games Workshop tournament, because that's got to be the best place to play. Yeah, I mean, to that extent, now I'm just going to the LGT because I had tickets for that before. I'm now going to it, so I'll be there. Phil, you're doing the doubles for the LGT, right?
Yeah. Well, originally I thought it was something that you and me would be doing, because obviously it's the perfect partnership. But you said you had tickets, and I assumed you had tickets with Joe to do a doubles, which is why I roped in Richie to do doubles with him.
Richie listens to this pod now, though, Phil. This is going to be like, he's going to feel bad and think that he's like, playing second fiddle, and he's now going to, not want to come and play games with you on Friday.
I was well up for playing with him, and I still am, Richie. I still am. It's going to be a good day. But no, I assumed you two had just gone ahead and got yourself a doubles ticket. So I was like, oh, cool. Me and Richie will do doubles. But then it turned out you didn't get doubles tickets. You got a single event ticket.
That's what me and Joe originally got. But then Joe's not doing it anymore because he's not with VT anymore, and so it all sort of just kind of changed. But now I'm going down with the Brawl guys, so it'll be me and the lads from Brawl, and then all the other peeps that will be there.
Anyone is, I think, going to be there in some capacity or another.
Well, indeed, and me seemingly. So there you go. It's all going on. But maybe we'll do a segment on my trip to the LGT. Maybe that'll be something worth talking about. Maybe I'll do a little segment next about my army list plans. We'll do it in like 10 minutes. It'll be a rapid fire thing. But there you go. I'll do this is what I'm taking fit segment. It'll be lovely. Anyway, rather than talking about that, let's conclude on Warhammer Plus. As I've said already, it's fine if you're a lunatic like me and it does, spending that money feels relatively insignificant to you, which is nothing to do with anything other than my general kind of appetite for Warhammer 40,000 related nonsense, then, I've got more value out of Warhammer Plus than that Land Raider that sat to the side of me in its cellophane, as I said at the start. So, yeah, it's all right. I can't recommend it, but it's fine.
Yeah, I guess it's that thing of if you're not a 40k player, and obviously I don't know why you'd be listening to this podcast if you weren't. If you're just exclusively an AOS player, for example, this app is not for you. It's all the hammer and bolter stuff so far is 40k, and I think they've kind of confirmed the first series is pretty much all 40k. Angels of Death obviously all 40k. 2 of the 3 battle reports are 40k. It'll be interesting to see how much AOS content will be there overall. I sort of personally, it's like every week I want 2 battle reports, an AOS one and a 40k one, a lore master video, a painting video, and at least 1 animation. For me, that would be like really good, consistent content. Next week, they're not doing that, which is why I'm a little bit disappointed. But as I've said, it could be a blip to rebalance the extra episodes we got up front. So going forwards, it'll be interesting to see how many we're going to get each week. And they were very vague about that as well. Like, oh, well, you should get new videos most Wednesdays, but nothing concrete, which, okay, that's fine. Just, give themselves a little break just in case. But yeah, ultimately, the content that's on there is good. I'm enjoying it. I would like more.
There you go. Good times. Well, there we go. There is our summary of all of that. Hopefully you enjoyed our perspective on it and found it informative, educational, and or entertaining. We're going to move on now to whatever it is that we decide to do next. Transitional noise. Woo! Hello again, one and all. In this part of the pod, we're going to do one of those general what we're up to in the world of hobby updates. Aren't we, Phil? Isn't it going to be exciting?
Oh, yes.
Oh, baby, baby. So, I suppose, seeing as I spoke about it in the last segment, we may as well roll into it. I'm going to be going to the London Grand Tournament film. That's something of note. Yes. So,
have you bought your food?
No, I'm just going to Deliveroo everything to the venue like a sensible person.
Madness.
Why is that madness?
You're going to get a guy in Deliveroo to come through like this giant stadium to find just you.
No, I'll just meet him out the front.
It's a bit. I give the impression it's a big place. Like it'll take you a long time to do that.
I doubt it.
You get half an hour between each game.
Yeah, but my games will be done in 40 minutes, so it's fine.
Because you'll be smashing your opponent up.
No. It's just that. So here's my strategy for playing at the LGT. I'm going to play with a chess clock because everyone at the LGT expects people to be the sorts of people that want to play with a chess clock.
Well, I think you have to, because even the doubles one that me and Richie are going to on the Friday, which is a casual affair, also requires the use of a chess clock unless you both decide that you don't want to use a chess clock.
Wonderful. Well, anyway, so I'm going to insist on using a chess clock, and I've worked out that with my army, I can finish all 5 turns in 20 minutes. So...
that's very quick.
Yes. Yeah. Well, so I used a version of the list I'm going to use at a Brawl event a couple weeks ago. And my average game in terms of my turns lasted 25 minutes to half an hour. And my opponent's turns tended to last probably an hour. So all in, we were finishing our games in an hour and 20, hour and a half on average.
It's pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, that's just because, again, I just sort of push the tempo. But because the thing is because there's so little in my army, I either win big or I lose dramatically. And it doesn't really matter. It's just like, whatever. Like, just run up, roll some dice. And that's how I like approaching the competitive game at the moment. Is I don't think there's any point trying and be good at it, because you could never really ever be good at it without kind of selling a bit of yourself in the process. Like in the olden days of 8th edition, I felt like the system was such that the army sizes and the rules were kind of interesting to the extent that there was a certain level of kind of fun and intrigue that can be done with it. But for 9th edition GT mission pack 40k, unless you really, 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 really enjoy tediously moving around hundreds of miniatures or doing the most kind of obscenely optimized meta army, it's just easier to rock up with an army that can, kick the snot out of your opponent if all goes well, but just as equally fall apart just as quickly. So that's my logic. So
Well,
yeah,
that should
that's
really be every army. It
Well,
can do
yes, of
well
course.
and it can do bad. That is a balanced game system.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But yeah, I mean, here's the thing. So my army list is a mixture of Imperial Knights and Custodes. It is a Knight Castellan, a Knight Gallant, a Armiger, Warglaive, a Shield Captain with sword and shield, a unit of 3 Custodian Guards with swords and shields, a Contemptor Galatus, and a Telemon. That's my army in its entirety. Oh, and a Caluxus Assassin.
Is that 2,000 points?
That is 2,000 points on the nose, yeah.
That's a lot of stuff.
I mean, it's 10 models.
It's a lot of really good elite stuff. Like if you're taking just the knights alone, you'd maybe think, oh, you could maybe squeeze in another knight for those points, which is like 400 points. I mean, out of how many points is all your custody stuff worth?
Hang on, let me just pull up the list so as you can hear it for yourself. So, Imperial Soup. So the Custodes is 730 points. The Assassin is 100 points, and the Knight is 1,170 points.
Wow, feels like those knights are cheaper than.
Well, the Castellan is 635 points.
Ooh,
yeah, 635 points. The
That's
Gallant
expensive.
is 400 points, and the Armiger is 135.
Nice. Sounds good.
So literally, I play with the strategy that I will be done in 20 minutes.
No, that's pretty good. And you're doing is
So
it
worst case scenario, my games will last an hour and 45 minutes.
and are you pre-taking your assassin as opposed to doing the 2 CP stratagem to take one and pick?
The 2 CP stratagem is not what you think it is. The 2 CP stratagem now is if you have one assassin for 2 CP, you can swap it.
Oh, yeah, I do remember it changing. So you
Yes.
don't have to pay it up front.
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
It's odd
No,
because
you
Battle
pay-
Scribe allows you to do it up front. But I think that, as you say, is probably a weird quirk because it used to be it cost you 1 CP and it gave you an assassin, but you could pick. But I think you're right. Yeah, you take one and you pay 2 CP if you want to change it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the theory. I've got another one day this weekend, so I'm doing another brawl event this weekend as a practice with that list as it was refined. I got 2 wins and a draw with a version of this list a weekend or 2 ago. So I'm going to see how it goes. My expectation is for the LGT is that I will probably, I think it's a 6-game event or a 7-game event. I don't know. It's a lot of games potentially. But my suspicion is that I will go 1 over half in the positive. If it's 6 games, I'll go 4 and 2. If it's 7 games, I'll go 4 and 3. If it's, I think I'll do slightly better than 50-50 with it, but I don't think there's any chance that I will go the distance with it. But then equally, I might just fall over and everything might fall apart really quickly. But, is what it is. The genius of this army list is I don't need to think. It does exactly what I think it's going to do every time.
Have you got preset 3 secondaries? Like, do you know which ones you're always going to pick, or do you have like 2 in the bag?
Yep. Behind enemy lines, which everyone thinks is rubbish, and they are always dumbfounded when I take it.
How can you? Because that's one way you got to be in their deployment zone, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So you can do that with the assassin, and then
the knights.
Oh, do you just like move them up?
Yeah. So, you give. Now I'm giving away the details of my
trade
strategy.
secrets. Okay.
Well, fine. I don't care if knowing it or not knowing it. It's not going to make any odds. I mean, here's the thing. If you do know what I'm doing, well done. And if you come up against me and you destroy me because you know exactly what I'm going to try and do, then fair enough. You've done your research and you deserve the win. So basically,
if they're a fan and a listener of the podcast, I sort of feel like you should just give them the win anyway.
Oh, I agree. Well, it's not enough that I provide them with hours of fabulous Warhammer 40,000 fun. No, it's fair enough. Just tell me you're a fan of the pod, and I'll concede straight away and go collect my delivery.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Anyway, no. So how is it going to go? So basically, I go House Raven with the Knights, and the reason I go House Raven with the Knights is that you can advance and shoot them as if they haven't advanced. And basically, I use the Gallant to use Iron Strider, and he basically gives a +2 to advances and charges, I believe. Definitely advances to Knight models within 6 inches of him, I believe. So basically, how that goes is in the opening turn, my Knight Castellan will move anywhere between 13 and 18 inches, depending on what I roll. And then my Gallant will move anywhere between 15 and 20 inches, depending on how far I roll. And my Armiger Helverin, which I can't remember if the Armiger Helverin actually benefits from the 2-inch aura. So let's not say it does, but I'll check for that purposes, because I haven't ran the Helverin in an army yet in a tournament setting anyway. I did a play test against Joe on the weekend, and Joe beat me up with 50, or not 50, beat me up with like 30 Chaos Space Marine Terminators and Abaddon, because turns out Abaddon, when he charges into anything that is Imperium, is a monstrosity. He does do some damage. But yeah, anyway, regardless of all that, the idea is you use that trait because then you can advance and shoot with no penalty. And then you just throw your Gallant down the line, and then you just try and get angles with the Castellan. And then you waddle up the Custodes elements. And then what tends to happen is that your opponent has a lot of threats coming from a lot of different directions, and they struggle with which one to prioritize. But in the opening turn, what tends to happen is that the Gallant tends to move about 18 inches, and then I pay the 2 CP to advance and charge him, and then I charge him into my enemy's front lines, even if it's a screening unit, because there's a likelihood off the back of that I'm going to have gotten 2 points for behind enemy lines, because for behind enemy lines, if you get 1 unit in, that's 2 points, and if you get 2 units in, it's 4 points. So I literally just sort of go for that early doors, and then I just live in their deployment zone. And then if I win, great. If not, whatever. But the other secondaries I always go for is grind them down, because I've got, 10 models, and they're all super durable. So I always go grind them down. And then it depends on my opponent. Typically, it will be assassinate. But if it's that they've also got a lot of vehicles, basically the killy thing depends on whether they're an army of psychers, whether they're an army of whatever. It all just depends on what my opponent brings to the table. But yeah, my genuine strategy is I don't care. I'm just running forwards.
That's very cool.
Yeah. And people, honestly, every time I've ran it so far, people don't really know what to do about it, because it's just very high pressure and people kind of tend to buckle. And what's amusing about it is if, people, because I don't care how long you're going to take, especially if you're on the clock. I haven't been running it with a chess clock yet, but I'm thinking of bringing the chess clock along. I'm thinking of bringing the chess clock along this weekend, just to start playing with it. So at that point, I don't care how long you take. You got your hour and 15. You do what you want. I'm done in 20. Don't worry about me. And it's the funniest thing, because I deploy and everything's deployed super quick, and my opponents are like, "Oh, what? Everything's down? Yeah, done." They're like, "Oh, what am I supposed to do now?" And I'm like, "I don't know. You figure it out. I'm going to go grab a drink." So it's it's just one of those, mate, where I think at the end of the day, the thing that's really funny about that list is the strategy is the same, whatever you come up against. It just depends on how many 4-up invuns I can pass. If I can pass 4-up invuns all day long, the army's amazing. If I fail a bunch, it's rubbish. And that's the army in a nutshell, right?
Brilliant. Yeah. Sounds, you just got to roll 4s. It's you got a 50-50% chance of doing that as well. So,
Yeah, exactly.
Doable.
That's my entire strategy. Run forwards, roll 4s, hope for the best.
That's very cool.
But the event that we're probably both more excited for than the LGT, believe it or not, is the little old RFW event that's taking place in Kent, right, Phil? We're getting all invested in that. We're working on some hobby projects specifically concerning that whole shebang.
Yeah, because that's November, end of November. LGT
23rd, right?
is something like that. No, or 26, I think. I could be wrong.
27th.
27th.
27th, yeah.
Yeah, LGT is end of September, so I'm doing a bit of painting in preparation for that, because for the doubles event with Richie, I want to take my Minotaurs.
Nice.
If I can do that, he'll take his Red Scorpion, so we have a nice Badab War kind of theme going on, which
Solid.
I think would be quite good. So it's just a matter of trying to plug away painting those things up. I've got some preparations for what to paint up after that, because that will get me to a little over 1,000 points, which is fine for the doubles event, but I need 1,750 for the RFW event. So my plan for that is to just paint up 2 Contemptors that I've got built. Whether I take them as relics or not, I'm not sure, because it's not a very good use of points for just the ability to take chain fists, which would look cool. Ideally, I would run them with the Cyclone launchers on the top, but I don't think I really have the points for that. So at the moment, I'm just finishing up my 30 lot of intercessors, which I started many months ago. Had a nice break building up some Thunder Warriors, and now I'm back to the grindstone, painting up my Minotaurs. At the moment, I'm doing back banners. I've got 3 back banners. 1 is complete, minus transfers. Got 2 left to do. And I've discovered that I absolutely hate painting back banners, because what I've done is I did some etched brass effects from the old Forge World etched brass kit. I applied and carefully bent and curved to the curvature of the banner and glued it down. But now I'm having to painstakingly paint up all this etched brass detail, and I completely regret it, basically. What I'd be much better off doing is just having left them blank, and then I could just apply some transfers to them afterwards, which would have been so much quicker. And they would effectively be the same thing, but just in transfer form. But I think when you're building, having something physically on the model as part of the model when you build it looks cooler in that unpainted state. But then it's more time and effort at the painting stage, whereas if that banner was blank, it doesn't look as good when it's unpainted. But then when I'm painting it up, what I could have done is I could have just masked off the rest of it, airbrushed on the overall kind of shades for the cloth of the banner, and then just done some transfers and stuff, and that would have saved me a lot more time, I think. Whereas I think it's going to look good once I'm done. I'm sort of nearly there, but it's just time consuming. And the thing is, with the logic with my Minotaur armies, I wanted to give every sergeant a back banner to be like old school Space Marines. So I've done it with these 3. I've got a sort of veteran intercessor squad that I'm not painting at the moment, but I've got them built. I've done it for him too, and I plan to do it for every other unit as well. But I'm just like, oh my god, it's just going to add so much extra work for the banners. I think it'll be worth it in the end. So, for example, in the very first battle report on Warhammer Plus, Nick plays Ultramarines, and every single one of his Ultramarine sergeants has a back banner on them, and they've all got like freehand on them. And it's like, I suspect that might be his army. I'm not sure. We talked about that before.
I think it is, yeah.
And they all look really fantastic. So it does make me go, if I put the effort in, it will look really good. And this is I'm trying to make this a big but really high quality, like high standard for painting, like better than my Krieg and stuff like that. So it's a lot of time and effort, but I think it'll be worth it. Once I get them painted. I'm nearly there. I've got to do some more bits to get them ready for the doubles, like decals, paint up the shoulder pads, paint the bases. That'll be the main thing. There's a couple of bits like power weapon effects I want to paint up, but I think I'll just kind of sack that off for the time being. And if I get time to do that for the RFW event, I'll do that. But I sort of want to just prioritize painting up the 2 dreadnoughts. I did buy. So this is my complaint story about Games Workshop. So a while ago, they did an offer. If you spend £50, you get a £5 voucher. Did you sign up to that one in the end? And
No,
by
I
sign
didn't.
up, I mean,
I
did you
didn't.
pay for it?
No, not this time around. I did it last year when they were offering it as part of the the absence of activity while COVID was happening.
Yes,
But I haven't
I remember that.
signed up this time.
So I did it this time. I got my voucher. I was like, brilliant. The voucher lasted pretty much exactly 1 month. So it was only valid for 1 month. And I was like, oh, okay, got to make sure I use it. I was like, the one thing I really wanted was the Relic Death Guard Contemptor, because it's a really nice design. And I want that to be my, Hector Nakios, which is the named character Minotaur, because I don't actually like the Forge World model for it. Whereas I reckon I could convert up the Death Guard one, because that's sort of visually more in keeping with the rest of my army. Like I like the trim, because it looks a bit like the shoulder pads that my veterans have. I like the armor bonding studs it's got. So I was like, I'm going to convert this up. And it was in stock. So I was like, oh, that'd be exciting. I'll buy that. But I was like, I won't buy it just yet. I'll wait until the following week. I'll see what the next lot of previews are for Forge World, because every Sunday they do a preview of what's coming out the following week. So I was like, I'll wait till then in case there's anything else I want to buy at the same time, save on postage, stuff like that. So the following week comes around. I think at this time there's like a week left, or just over a week left before the voucher runs out. So I'm like, okay, there's nothing on the previews I want. I'm going to go and just buy the model. I go online to buy the model. It's out of stock. And I'm like, oh, well, oh, damn, what am I going to do? There's nothing. I look around on the website. There's not really much else I actually want. And the few bits that I do are also out of stock. So I was like, okay, this is a bit of a problem now, because I've got my £5. I don't want it to run out. So I contact customer services and have a little chat with them. And I'm like, oh, this is the situation. My voucher runs out in a week's time. I thought I'd give them a bit of notice. And I was like, is there anything you can do? Can you extend the duration of the voucher or reissue it or whatever? Because I'm a bit like, the voucher is only valid for a month, which is a really short amount of time, which is a bit shady in my opinion. It shouldn't be if it's 6 months or a year, that's a normal sort of amount that a voucher lasts for. But 1 month is a bit ridiculous. And I was like, so I'm like, could you extend it? And they're like, no, we can't do that. And I'm like, okay, well, can you reissue it or give me can I buy the model in advance? It's like, you have it, it's not my fault it's not in stock, right? Basically went for a big song and dance with the guy that basically nothing they can do. Oh, speak to your manager. He is the manager, and then the next senior person is away. So he basically says, oh, you can put in a complaint. I was like, fine, I'll do that. Still haven't heard back from them, surprisingly. Then a few days later, our friend Garfield, who's doing the Rapid Fire Wargaming event, is down in London at Tottenham Court Road, the new flagship store. They've got a ton of new Forge World, well, not new, they've got all the Forge World models in there. So it's like, no wonder why Forge World website is out of stock, because all the stock is down at Warhammer World, in Tottenham Court Road, their flagship store. And it turns out they've got a Death Guard Relic Contemptor. And I was like, oh, mate, could you do me a favor? Can you just ask them, if you can buy it using my voucher? And he's like, oh, yeah, sure, that's fine. Just let me know what the voucher number is. Give me your address and they send it to you. I was like, oh, brilliant. I do all that. And he's like, oh, so with the voucher, they've got to put it through the website. So you can't buy it because it's out of stock on the website, even though it's in stock in the shop. But to use the voucher, they've got to basically use the same website that everyone else does to buy it. So I was like, wait, so I can't use my voucher there, even though they've got one in stock. I was like, okay, right, what am I going to do? I sort of sat on it for a few days, and I was like, what I could do at the last minute, I'll just buy another Contemptor that is in stock. And then what I'll do is I'll keep it sealed, next time
A dastardly plan.
and then next time I end up at Warhammer World, I'll just return it for the dreadnought I actually want, because they do straight swaps with you if everything is sealed in its original packaging and you've got the receipts and stuff. So I was like, at least that way I'd have used my voucher. And like 2 days before the voucher goes out of date, I get a little email from Forge World saying it's back in stock, because I did the remind me email. So the Contemptor Death Guard Dreadnought is back in stock. So I immediately buy it. I get it. I basically save like $150 because $350 is postage. But I'm like, but I still use my voucher as a point of principle. I'm sorry, people, for a very long, boring story, but at the end of the day, I've got the Contemptor Dreadnought that I want. I got to use my voucher. I got my £5. I spent my £50 to get my £5 voucher, and I used it, even if it only saved me like $150 or whatever in the end. Happy days. I mean, but palaver to try and spend that voucher, and kind of really rubbish customer service from Games Workshop, where they're like, yeah, we can't do anything with the voucher. It's in the system. We can't give it to you. We can't like extend it or anything like that. It's all a bit rubbish, really. So that was a bit disappointing. So, which makes me a bit hesitant about you'll get a £10 voucher for Warhammer Plus, but I bet you it's only valid for a month to sort of force you to spend something straight away. Like, you won't be able to save up a couple of vouchers to use.
Yeah, I very much doubt that as well. But I mean, you know, I guess we'll see what happens on that account. But yeah, I suppose I would summarize that story, Phil, as a lot of fuss about nothing. But you know, as it transpires. But no,
I was saved at the last minute. I mean, if that wasn't in stock, I would have been fuming so much more. I would have just, out of spite, bought another one and then returned it sometime later when we go back to Warhammer World. And even that's more effort than it's worth for the £1.50 I would have gotten back out of it. I'm like, I would do it just as a point of principle.
Absolutely, mate. No, I understand exactly where you're coming from on that. And I think that, you know, again, I think occurrences like that where you have difficulties with customer services is always a bit bothersome. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, you expect a certain level of flexibility. And I think, again, a lot of that's born out of historical kind of precedents that have been established with, you know, the GW team. I remember the olden days of the Games Workshop stores, the first and, you know, rare instance where I took back a kit because it was missing some components, and it, you know, was legitimately missing some components. Or actually, I think if I remember correctly, there were other instances where I took back like fine cast kits because the quality of the mold and the, you know, the reproduction was such poor quality that I was just like, it's just a mess. Like, the weapons aren't fully formed or whatever it was. And, you know, I remember the guys in the store being like, oh, no worries, just take another one and, you know, just keep the one you got, you know, because all I'm going to do is throw it away. So you might as well keep it and see if you can use it for bits. So it was always a really nice little thing where you were like, you felt like, oh, wow, what a great, you know, customer experience.
Yeah, I've had those kind of experiences as well. And when it comes to faulty products, especially when it's Games Workshop plastic stuff, they've always been really good about it, or at least in the past when I've had those experiences. One time I had Shield of Baal, which was a box set of Tyranids and Blood Angels. I'm trying to think if I bought 2 or 3. I think or 1 or 2, sorry. I think I bought 1. I'm just trying to think, actually. I might have bought 2 because I was like, I want all the Tyranids because I was going through a Tyranid collection phase. I definitely got at least 1. Basically, the instruction manual, or not the instruction manual, the campaign manual inside it was damaged because it had like been torn from the sprues, because I think this was before the days they did the dividers of the kind of artwork stuff. So they were like, oh, no worries, we'll send you out a new one. And they literally sent me a whole brand new box, which was like worth 80 odd quid or 100 or whatever it was, just for the one like booklet inside that was damaged. And I wasn't expecting that. And I was like, oh wow, that was fantastic. So I ended up with either 2 or I ended up with 3 of those boxes. I can't remember how many I bought in the end. So yeah, that was like really cool customer service. And Forge World has been as good as that in the past. More recently, they've been a bit more stringent about what they count as faulty and something you should fix yourself. And it's like, so even when I sort of fundamentally disagreed with them about some of those issues when something isn't working, because for example the cast is fine, but it's the cure of the resin hasn't been properly done, so the paint won't stick to the resin even with like a decent primer on it and stuff like that. So sometimes I complained about that and they've gone, oh no, that's, you've got to sort that out. And I was like, well no, I know what I'm doing. I had to like take it up to like a manager for them to actually turn around and go, oh, actually no, okay, we will send you those bits. Because I basically had to go through this really long, laborious process of saying, yes, I've washed it, yes, I've done X, Y, Z to it, and does the paint still come off or not? And it was like, yes, it does. So yeah.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because I bought one of those tiles from way back when, and that was an awful customer experience because, you know, a couple of interesting things about the Realm of Battle tiles that Forge World did. They're about half an inch shorter than the regular Realm of Battle tiles on each side, or rather maybe they're like a quarter of an inch shorter on each side, resulting in it being half an inch shorter overall. And it's completely misshapen. Sorry, when you receive it, and you know, I contacted them and said, "Is this normal that I basically get like a wonky, like, you know, minuscule thing that isn't in the correct proportions and is wonky?" And they're like, "Yeah, so you know, what you got to do is you gotta basically find a way of containing it within some boiled water to sort of like reshape it.
Put it in a bathtub, basically."
I'm like, what are you on about? Like, what? Like, I mean, this thing with, like, I mean, I can't remember how much that tile was. Maybe it was 80 quid. Maybe
it was about then. Yeah, I think they're not cheap.
Whatever the case, not cheap. And I'm like, guys, I mean, really? Like, you know, like, I get it that there's a certain modeling expectation for a lot of your kits, but a flipping Realm of Battle tile, like, more work needs to be done by you guys to ensure that they leave your facility in a better state than what I found mine in. And, you know, maybe that's indicative of why those Realm of Battle boards just don't exist anymore, because people bought them and were like, these are rubbish.
I suspect so, and I think that's probably indicative of why they're moving most of the resin stuff over to plastic, because you don't have those issues. Like the amount of people that the general complaint of Forge World is, for the price you pay, because it's a premium product, you don't get very good quality like QA stuff on the product. There's always like misshapen bent bits. And the other side of the argument is, well, that's just inherent with resin. It's part of like the hobby process, is to know how to fill holes like air bubbles or to bend things back into shape, which is why it's like more of an advanced product. And I think now, like, you know, you've got the Necromunda Zone Mortalis tiles and stuff, which were historically done in resin. You've got them now like effectively replicated in plastic. So I could see a lot of that stuff shifting over, and just like models in general, like popular kits, I think we'll hopefully see become plastic kits over time, because it's just like, if they can afford it from a point of view of like creating the molds needed to make the plastic kits, is much more profitable for them to do it that way, whereas casting resin kits is so much more labor intensive. Which is why it's fine for smaller runs or niche products or things where you don't think you're going to make a lot of profit overall.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, interesting, fun experiences there with the customer service teams of GW. But you got your Death Guard Dreadnought now, right?
It's turned up. I've not opened it up yet, so I need to make sure it's all okay. But yeah, I've got it.
And then you're going to start converting it into a what now?
Hecton Achios, I think is his name. He's
Hecton Achios, my favorite.
He's the Minotaur Contemptor character, who I don't think is
the plasma cannon guy.
Yeah, plasma cannon and claws. So he's not like an optimal build per se in terms of weapon loadout. But I think he's got some cool abilities. I think he's the only Contemptor now with a 4-up in Vun.
Correct, yes.
And he can do mortal wounds on the charge.
Yes.
I think that's his only two like real perks over a normal. Is odd. I was looking at the relic contemptors over the regular contemptors, and it's like they used to have like was it feel no pain and a slightly better invuln save in the past.
Yeah.
And now and it had a better ballistic skill, and now they don't have any of that. So you pay 1 CP to basically get access to other weapon options. You know,
such as Twin Volkite, which is worth 1 CP to a lot of people.
Well, it is because they're so cheap. They're like 5 points, I think.
Yeah, and powerful.
They're crazy cheap in comparison. It's like I like the idea of the rockets on top just because I think they look cool and give you some extra anti-tank. I love the idea of the chain fists because they just look really cool once I put some hazard stripes on them, and they do flat 6 damage against vehicles, which is crazy good. So it's like I think rule of cool are. I'm tempted to, for the rapid fire wargame event, do melter gun and multi-melter and the chain fists, and it's like I'm paying a CP for that. It's, you know, a more optimized loadout would be to take the missiles on top, but I just don't have the points unless I drop my plasma inceptors to regular bolter inceptors. But I kind of like the idea of having some versatility by having the plasma guys for one of my squads. But yeah, ideally I'd paint up all 3 dreadnoughts at the same time, but I don't think I have time, so I'll probably just paint up my 2 contemptors that I've already got built, and then at some point down the line I'll worry about old Achios and build him. And I'm thinking at the moment for my Minotaurs, so I've been running them as successor chapters to White Scars, and I've currently been doing Inheritors of the Primarch, but I think due to the weapon options, taking Inheritors isn't that useful because I don't have a lot of assault weapons, and also fallback and the ability to charge again is useful, but it also is like not useful when it comes to what's the secondary? It's like Heroes of the.
Secondaries wouldn't necessarily be something you need to concern yourself with for RFW because they're basing it on more simplified missions that don't use secondaries. But
yes, no, that's true.
You're thinking of Oaths of Moment.
Oaths of Moment, that's it. Yeah, I'm just thinking more general as well, especially like for the doubles events. I'm thinking about taking Whirlwind of Rage, so 6s to hit give you an extra hit, and something about charging into combat where you get +1 to your charge and advance rolls.
Yes.
Hungry for battle. That's it.
Yes.
So I'm thinking,
those are 2 good options.
I'm thinking about taking those 2. There's also Tactical Withdrawal, which gives you the ability to fall back and charge, which does work better for Whirlwind of Rage because that only works when you charge. So for a second round of combat, you could just fall back and charge in again for that bonus. But I think for now, the ability to just get +1 on the charge is maybe more useful, especially when I've got like a Smash Captain. And if I really wanted to, for only 1 CP using a White Scar stratagem, I could outflank one of the Dreadnoughts. So I could have a better chance of getting a charge in because then I'm only charging on 8s rather than 9s. So maybe that's a better option, I think, in terms of rather than Inheritors of the Primarch, which is what I've been doing so far.
Yeah. I mean, for my Unnumbered Sons project, I've ended up going Ultramarine successors. So for a long time, I was looking at them more as an Ultramarines army. But I think upon reflection, I felt like it was more correct that they become a successor. So bizarrely, even though I'm planning on having Roberto Gilliman leading this force, they will not be Ultramarines, even though they will be an Ultramarine successor. So a lot of Gilliman's actual perks that benefit Ultramarine specifically will not affect this army.
Won't they affect the successor chapters as well, though?
No, they have to be Ultramarines. So the ability to reroll hits and reroll 1s to wound will not be given to my army because he's leading a ragtag bunch of, various chapters. So because of that, they are effectively, in my understanding, conducting combat in a much more kind of in a way that's much more kind of in line with certain sort of ultramarine tactics and logics, but they are still made up of a whole mix of things. So to reflect that, I ended up going with the tactical withdraw, which is the ability to withdraw from combat and still charge, because that to me seemed like a kind of valuable ability that still kind of showcases some of the more combat-centric elements of the army. And then, or chapters and so on and so forth. And then additionally, I've gone with warded, because there was a lot of talk about, obviously, the Primaris Marines being more resilient to the influence of chaos and essentially being, created in Mars and anointed with more, protections and inherent abilities to ward them from the effects of the warp and so on and so forth.
Is warded V5 up on mortal wounds?
Correct, yeah. So it's shrugging mortal wounds on 5s, which means that in a lot of games, I'm not going to benefit from that whatsoever. But in the games where it will mean something, it'll mean a lot.
Yeah, I think in terms of like the relics I was taking, I think one of them I wanted to take is the Reliquary of Galgafamor, which is the -1 within 18 inches on your opponent's psychic tests. And if they fail on a 4+, you do D3 mortal wounds to them, because that will be the only like psychic defense I'll take, unless I also take a Colluctus, which I might do if I don't paint up my Contemptors. I might have to take either an Inquisitor or an Assassin or both as my filling up the points, as like my backups basically. So I might have to do that. But yeah, I like the idea of that as a sort of a bit of psychic defense for the army. I think it's a cool little gimmick.
Again, my logic with it is more just that that's kind of, in line with what they kind of came from. And when I was looking through all the different ones, I was torn between Hungry for Battle and Tactical Withdrawal. Hungry for Battle, obviously, it also felt like it fit the theme, because obviously the Primaris Marines would theoretically, during the Indomitus Crusade, be hungry for battle, and thus would be eager to get in with their +1 advances and charges. But in the end, I was like, nah, I think the tactical withdrawal sort of fits some of the more kind of interesting thematics. And also, as much as obviously I'm trying to create an army list that's fun and interesting and fluffy, it is a more, advantageous ability in the majority of games to be able to withdraw and charge than it is to be able to add 1 to those charges. But again, it's a mixed bag. But I'm enjoying mucking around with Space Marines, and I'm enjoying exploring the idea of the Unnumbered Suns, because I think they're a really interesting concept. And I think if I do a good job of painting up Bobby G and getting all the elements, so I have paid the CP to take a relic from the Ultramarines book, and I've taken the Banner of Macragge, or the Ultima Banner, or whatever it's called, the banner that basically adds +1 to your leadership and gives and gives +1 attack. It's called the Standard of Macragge Inviolate. Inviolate. Nice. Inviolate. Anyway, whatever. The point is I've given him that ability by paying the CP for it and all the rest of it. Because, Bobby G's leading the army, I've got CP for days. I mean, the army's got 15 command points to muck around with. So I've even... Yeah, so I've paid to... And the other thing is I've gone for a small contingency of Phobos units, which theoretically doesn't necessarily fit the theme for the Indomitus Crusade, because technically, in the early versions of the writings around the Indomitus Crusade, Phobos armor wasn't in it, but that was mainly because Games Workshop hadn't gotten around to showing off the full extent of what the Phobos range was. So we knew that Reavers were in the Indomitus Crusade.
Yes, because they were in the initial launch, weren't they?
Yeah, but they didn't necessarily suggest that other Phobos units weren't there. It's just more that this was obviously what they had to talk about and sell at that time, so that's what they focused on. So they are expanding that. So, now I've got 1 unit of Incursors, 1 unit of Infiltrators, 1 unit of Eliminators, and a Phobos Captain. So I've got my little Phobos contingency. And then I've got aggressors, a chapter ancient, a lieutenant, because I need the lieutenant to still get that reroll ones to wound, because Gilliman's not giving my army reroll ones to wound. He gives them reroll ones to hit because they're Imperium. So I'm having a lieutenant walk around with Bobby G to still give me my reroll ones to wound. I'm also taking a gladiator. I'm taking the Daka Gladiator. So the one with all the
sort of Punisher
Gatling
style
cannons.
guns. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I'm taking the Hammerhead or the Hammerhand a Storm Speeder. So the multi-melter, the melter gun Storm Speeder. And then lastly, a Redemptor Dreadnought. And that's literally the list. It's 1750 on the nose. It's going to be an interesting little army to bring along. I think that army is going to be a really fun thematic force to play. I don't think it's got it in it to win any games, but I will see how I do. I think it's got a lot of fun tactical flexibility on it. And I think Bobby G is always still legit. So I think he can cause a lot of headaches for people. But yeah, as an army list, I'm not expecting to do anything remarkable with it. But I'm really impressed so far with, as you were saying earlier, Phil, the quality of armies that are going to be there and actually the kind of caliber of, hobby that is on display. And that's definitely every time that Garfield over at RFW, old Tom, is posting updates of the armies that are going to be in attendance. It really spurs me on to try and deliver a high standard of models for my side, because there's some good stuff coming along. There's some good looking armies. So
there's some really really good ones out there, because I was like, got my mind tools, good chance, if there's a painting competition, might be in there. And then Garfield posted up Nick Goddard's Death Guard army, and I was like, okay, that's me out now. That's him winning it for sure. Because
baby, mate. I mean,
it
you never
is
know.
a stunning army. It's definitely up there as like one to win any kind of best army award for sure. But I'll still give it my best. We've got our own little challenge still. Trying who can do the best Space Marine army between the two of us.
That's it. That's the real contest. We'll have that as a separate feature within the event, I suppose. We're not in the regular painting contest. We're in the grudge match.
Yes.
Who did a better job, Dan or Phil?
Exactly. Give it our best.
Exactly. How many excuses will you make if I win that?
All of the excuses under the sun.
Yeah. I mean, you already made an excuse about it when we teased it the first time. I think you said something to the effect of, the only way you win that is if I don't finish.
Yeah, basically. Which is quite likely to be the case. I was hoping I'd have these back banners already painted by the weekend, and it's halfway through the next week, and I'm still at it. So, yeah, who knows when I'll get this done? Because
well, you and me have easily got as much to do as each other, really. So
yeah, what have you got to paint up on yours?
So all I have completed thus far is samplers of every single thing. So I've got a half-painted Redemptor Dreadnought.
Lovely.
I've got a couple Eliminators painted in the Eliminator squad, so I've got to finish one more and then they're done. I've got a couple Intercessors, and I've got... what's the other thing that I did? There's something else as well that I painted. Oh, I painted the Lieutenant. There you go. So at the moment, I've got to finish the Dreadnought, which I think with a concerted effort, I can have that done this week. So that's I want to get the Dreadnought out of the way, because I think once I've broken the back of one of the big three, because I got, one of the big four. So I got 4 big models that I need to do. I've got Bobby G, of which I've painted the head, the backpack, and the arms. I've got the Dreadnought to do, which I've painted the inner torso area. So now actually the rest of the Dreadnought is actually a lot easier than what I've painted. So I just need to smash that out and just get into the batch painting mentality of it.
Yeah.
I've got the Gladiator and the Storm Speeder. So those are the big ones.
I would be in sweats if I had that much to paint.
I honestly, I think when I get in the groove of it, it all just sort of happens. Like, you know, I painted a large chunk of this Redemptor in a day. Like, it literally, like, not a day, like literally like a couple hours. I got it to where it is currently, and I look at it and think another 6 hours, it'll be done. So yeah, I just need to make the time. But unfortunately, I do things like this podcast and playing gaming tournaments and all that kind of nonsense, and I've got stuff that I have to do.
I mean, this is always the problem. It's like I really want to get some practice games in before the LGT, but also the RFW one. But I know I also want to prioritize the weekends painting, because that's the time when you get the biggest block to just go, I'm not doing anything else on the weekend. It's always funny, like at work on Monday, like, oh, what did you get up to on the weekend? Everyone's like gone visited family or gone for nice walks and stuff, or been to parties and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, I just did some stuff around the house, which is code word for I was just in the shed solidly, from like 10 in the morning till 10 at night or later, painting away, not doing anything else.
Yeah, well, I admire your dedication to it, mate. But yeah, I think this is the thing. I think for me, petting up this force will be cool, and I think it'll be fun. And I'm excited about it as a list. I think it's got a lot of really interesting elements to it, and I think it's just going to be fun to bring an army that's just a fun thematic army that I've built around a theme, as opposed to a tournament ideology. Like, literally, there isn't one unit in my army that's duplicated. Everything is different. It's all different stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah, and there's some easy wins. Like, here's the thing: painting aggressors doesn't take a long time. Painting intercessors doesn't take a long time. Painting infiltrators doesn't take a long time. Painting incursors, oddly, incursors are a terrible squad. They take loads of time. They're an awful squad in terms of speed painting, because they're just covered in like intricate little details.
All the tactical gear and stuff.
Yeah, they got like knives and bolt pistols and grenade pouches and loads of like lenses going off all over the places. They don't wear helmets, so you can't do any like quick tricks on that. So you got to paint flesh details, and then their visors are detailed with like a visor, like goggle element, and then like the hair, and so there's a lot that goes into the Incursor squad.
Yeah, I do. I was thinking about. I think earlier this morning, I sort of wish Games Workshop would do a really basic range of models, like a bit like Easy Build, but like even easier. So like single plastic, like no building required, like single pose, old school 80s 90s Games Workshop. Like, think about the original Hero Quest, single piece plastics, like very little detail on. Well, they're still detailed, and if you see professional painters paint up old models from those days, they look incredible still. Like, they've got detail on them, but they're not just rammed with detail like you get nowadays. There's no hundreds of pouches, backpacks, or weapons on them. It's like the Gloom Spike gets, like, trying to paint those up just look like a nightmare because there's just so much detail on them. It's like I'd much rather they did like a kind of, I would say, kid-friendly version of a lot of their models, which are just a lot more streamlined. Because if I was an 8-year-old wanting to paint a lot of the models that Games Workshop comes out with, I mean, maybe you don't care, because even when I was 8, I didn't really care too much about painting. I just slapped some on and called it a day. So does it matter if there's more detail on that model or not? But I do think there would be a demand for like a kind of what I would call a basic range of minis, like and even if they deliberately hearkened into that kind of retro 80s style of mini, I think there would also be a demand for that as well, like old school style minis, just made in plastic.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, though, isn't it? I think when you look at the Primaris range, when you look at the Incursor, Intercessor, or even the Incursor, the Intercessor, the Aggressor, the nice, easy minis, the heavy Intercessor, They're chunky, nice, easy, big flat surface things to paint. And even the Infiltrator to that extent. But yeah, it's things like the Incursors, the Eliminators and Nightmares. Like, so the Eliminators, every Eliminator is a character. Like, if you buy the multi-part plastic kit for the Eliminator, every one of them is a character sculpt. So
the Eliminators are the snipers, right?
Yeah.
Is there
so
a non-multi-part version?
There is, yeah. There was the Shadow Sword variant of them.
Shadow Spear.
Spear.
If there was a Shadow Sword variant, that would be very cool. Everyone is a super heavy volcano lance.
Yeah, exactly. They're just rocking up with like this big volcano cannon over their heads, like badoosh. There you go. I mean, that would live up to their name, but yeah, every one of those sculpts in terms of the multi-part plastics are character worthy miniatures, and to paint them any other way is I think ridiculous. Like, so I can't batch paint these guys. It can't be done. They have to be done individually, and that's a chore. So yeah, it's just one of those where it's like, you know, there are elements to the army that will definitely take more time. But yeah, I'm looking forward of the miniatures. I'm looking forward to painting. I am actually looking forward to. At the moment, I'm looking forward to painting Bobby G. I think that's going to be really exciting. I think finishing the Dreadnought is going to be really rewarding. I just think my problem is I've done what silly people do, and I've painted the most entertaining part of the Dreadnought first, and now I've just got to slog all of the panels and all
in terms of like edge highlighting them and stuff like that.
Yeah, and just, you know, washing them and getting all the detail in, because, you know, a big part about the Redemptor Dreadnought is where all of like the metal goes, where all of the like darker elements go. So, you know, like when you actually look at the mini and you look online, like, you know, and at like other versions of it, like working out where all the black areas are and painting those in, and painting, like, you know, all the cabling and all of that stuff. It's a chore, right? Because it's not sexy. It's never going to look great until it's all done. And then even then, it's the sort of details that you want to pay attention to, but it's not really the thing that people are going to notice. It's like when you paint the Marines, you paint the faces really nicely, but the rest of it you can kind of whatever. And that's the same with this guy. It's like I've painted the face, and now I need to do the body. And I don't want to just sort of cheap out and do a really quick, simple technique on it. But at the same time, I don't want to go crazy on it. It's just one of those things where it's a balancing act, right?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting when I do the Contemptors for my army, because it'll be the first time I'm doing a vehicle. And they're obviously smaller than things like the Repulsor that I've got, which is, and I've got a Redemptor, like an easy build that I could also paint up as well. So I think on one hand, it'd be fun to do because it's a bigger piece. You could maybe do some different weathering stuff that I wouldn't necessarily do on an infantry scale model. But then at the same time, I think there's a bit more of a learning curve, because I could sort of knock out the infantry, not with ease, but I know what I'm doing. I've sort of practiced that. Whereas vehicles, there's slightly different techniques that you've got to do to make it work. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to do those. I think they will be quite fun and hopefully be relatively quick, because they're big pieces, but they're not too big. There's lots of paneling that, yeah, I've got to edge highlight and stuff, but hopefully that won't be too time consuming because it's just two models. I think the problem for my Contemptors is that I've magnetized all the weapon options, and even within the fist, I've magnetized all the little guns that go inside the fist, and I've magnetized the finger ring mount, so I can have the claws, the fists, or the chain fists. I could just be lazy, and I could just paint up the exact weapon options that I need for the event just to speed it up. But technically, the more correct way of doing the batch painting is to just do it all in one go, just for the consistency of the coloring and stuff like that. So I'll see how I get on with that. I might just do what I need to do for the event if I feel like I'm gonna run out of time, which could quite easily happen. And then save those other weapon options for when I sort of finally decide I need something else other than the melters or the, you know, Keras pattern assault cannons or whatever I pick.
Yeah. That's it, mate. So that's the thing with it all. But I mean, the only model I've still got to build, because everything else is at least built. The only thing I need to build is the Gladiator, but the Gladiator is a new addition to the army. I added the Gladiator literally on the weekend because I was like, you know what? I just love the mini and I want to add a Gladiator to my army. And I know they're rubbish, but I don't care. I just want to add it. So
I got the impression there was a list for Marines that did well recently that had a Gladiator in. I'm not sure how true that is, though. But
I think that is true, but I think the problem is that people put a bit too much kind of credit into those kind of one-off instances where someone brings something that kind of just goes against the grain in that environment. And, you know, a lot can happen in a one-day event depending on the opponents that you come up against and how those things go. And I'm not dismissing or suggesting that individual who did well with, you know, Gladiators was, you know, playing in an event that wasn't competitive, because I'm sure that isn't the case. But what I would say is that, you know, I wouldn't read too much into a one-off performance like that. But yeah, I mean, you know,
cool
but
mini.
it definitely, it's a cool mini. And it was, and this is the thing, I added it to my army list because I saw, again, so going back to Warhammer Plus, I saw it in that bat rep on Warhammer Plus and I went, oh, that looks cool. I want one of them.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think, and the thing is, it's like, objectionably, they're still good. They're just maybe not the most optimized or competitive for their points. And I think, you know, we've talked about before how vehicles tend to just struggle overall. It's like, in comparison to a Redemptor, it's like, yeah, the Redemptor will always be way better just because it's so optimized and it's got so many extra buffs like -1 damage and things like that. But it's like the Gladiator on its own, you compare that to a Punisher Lehman Russ, it's like, it's way better. It's like, it's got much better output for its points. But then, yeah, there's just other better options in the Space Marine Codex, but it doesn't mean it's a bad unit on its own. And what I like also about the sort of narrative event is we can lean into the units that you would probably not bother with. It's like, if I don't get these painted up, I'm going to take my Guard army, and if I'm taking them, I'm going to take my Inquisitor, the Acolytes. In fact, I can only take one Inquisitor because of the rules. But what I will do is I'll take my Crusaders, and the Crusaders I sort of painted up as using Sisters of Silence models with Skitarii Vanguard helmets. And they're like my Inquisitor's bodyguards. And it's like the Crusader rules, because it would also be going back to the old Crusader rules from the Astra Militarum Codex, because there was a weird time when, so the Astra Militarum Codex existed. It's got its own Crusade rules that matched the very old Sisters of Battle Codex. Then the Beta Codex came out in chapter approved many years ago, and it had a little sort of call out box that said for Guard players to use these new rules. But obviously the new 8th and subsequently 9th edition Codex has since come out. But as far as I'm aware, Guard still use their data sheet for the Crusaders. So they have very different rules. They're arguably maybe not as good, I would say. Basically, Crusaders for Guard are rubbish. I think even Crusaders for Sisters are rubbish. But it's like, I will totally take them because it's a narrative event and they're some of my best painted minis. I just think they look really good. So if I do Guard, I'll definitely lean into sort of the fun and sort of fluffy aspects of my army rather than trying to go something super competitive. And likewise, well, with my Minotaurs, it's more, what do I have painted or can get painted in time, regardless of whether it's competitive or not. But ultimately, it's going to be like 30 Intercessors, 9 Inceptors, a Captain, a Lieutenant, and hopefully 2 Contemptors. So it won't be super competitive, but I think it will look nice on the tabletop.
Yeah, agreed, mate. And that's the thing, though, isn't it? It's like, you know, I think that is a perfectly acceptable and, you know, appropriate way to approach the task. And I think you looking at that is, you know, something that, you know, feels right to me. I think, you know, the way that you're approaching it seems spot on. And, you know, I think, you know, that seems to be how everyone's sort of approaching it. And, you know, I think, are some armies going to be better than others? Yeah, sure. I mean, that's part and parcel of the process in so much as, with the best will in the world, even with some fluffier ideals, some of the armies just have to be better than some of the other armies. That's just how it is. But I think, irrespective of that, I think it will be a fun event that we enjoy, and I think it's gonna be good. I'm excited for it. I think it's gonna be a fun time, and I'm looking forward to getting involved with it. And I'm looking forward to sharing photos of my progress as I start to really, now that I've fully refined the army list and I know what I'm taking, I need to now step it up a gear and just get stuff done. So I need to really focus now on finishing full units and then moving on to finishing the characters. Then I need a schedule. I need to basically do my schedule and work out the order of events. And
maybe we need to do a little update at the end of every podcast in terms of what have we got painted this week.
Exactly. We can have some kind of traffic light system for showcasing the status of our project.
It's all red. It's red everywhere.
Exactly. The whole thing is just a disaster. But no, I will. I love a timetable. I might put one together right now or later, because that'll probably do for that, Phil. There you go, Hobby Chat, and continuing to put over our friend Tom's event in November. But I think it's sold out now, right? You can't get tickets for it anyway.
It probably is sold out, or if there is any, there's like 1 or 2 left. So go snap them up if you really want to.
Exactly. If you want to come play games with us in Kent, go buy that ticket. Going once, going twice. That'll do, I reckon. Transitional noise. Woo! And that is that, everybody. The end of episode 102. Although you know better than that. It's that bit at the end of the show where me and Phil talk about things and or respond to community questions. Such is our want. Right, Phil?
Exactly. That is 100% what this segment is all about.
As per the title of it, at least within the YouTubes. Although I do take the time to add chapters to the podcast overall in all of its podcastdom. I'm just never sure how that actually gets, thrown out there into the world. I put the effort in. I have no idea if it ever actually comes across.
Let's hope it does then.
Well, exactly. I mean, wasted effort is, I suppose, in many respects, it's the watchword of our output in some respects. Again, adding to the look out, sir subheaders. Look out, sir. A waste of effort. There you go. We're coming up with a great little series of taglines today.
Look out, sir. A waste of your time. Is that not true? Too much.
I don't think it's
a
waste of time. No, that's definitely not true. Definitely not true.
Well, maybe... Look out, sir. A nice way to pass the time.
That does give a nice warm feeling to it, doesn't it? If you hear about the prospect of, a nice way to pass the time, there's a lot of nice evocative ideas that are conjured up as a result of that.
Sit back, put on your comfy slippers, and get that kettle on.
Do you have comfy slippers, Phil? I find that every time that I wear slippers, they make my feet all sweaty, and I'm not into it. I much prefer, just bare toesies out there in the air.
Do you know what? As I was never a slipper person. As a child, my parents always had slippers, and they would get me one, and I'd be like, "Oh no, hot feet! I can't do it." Now I pretty much live in a pair of sort of fancy modern slippers. They're sort of got nice. I guess breathable material, and then the bottom is like a sort of built-in sole, so it's a cross between a slipper and a shoe, so I can use it to go outside to the shed, not the actual outside into the real world with people. That would be mad. Wearing your slippers out in public, no, that's not for me. But to the back garden, to the shed where I do my hobbying, it's what I'm wearing right now. A comfy
my goodness,
pair
there we
of
go.
Slippers.
Well, thank you for that impromptu QVC segment, my friend. If only we plugged our merchandise as well as you promote, these obscure slippers that you're referring to.
Slip on a pair of your favourite Look Out, Sir t-shirts. Super comfy.
2 of them simultaneously, 1 over each arm.
Well, or double layer if you want to be really warm. Get a bit sweaty, get that sweat on. Yeah.
Yeah. And theoretically, if there's one on each arm to alleviate the sweat, you could operate one of those kind of like propeller motions where you twist your arms as I'm illustrating right now, and thus creating, centrifugal force to enable the t-shirts to spin around your arms, thus creating a cooling effect.
That's true. Do you think we could get Lookout's slippers made?
Yeah, I don't see why not, mate. We're full blown shield mode now. We'll do whatever.
I think people would like that. I would like that.
Fine.
Branded slippers. Yeah.
Get on the phone to Lee over at old Rev level and have a word with him.
I'll drop him a text. I don't do.
Yeah, just be like, Lee, come on, make me some nice slippers. I don't want to pay for them. Just send them to me, please. That's the root cause of all things.
Sure, it's doable.
At the LGT, should I go in t-shirt?
Why not? I think you should. I think maybe I should do that for the Friday when I'm doing the doubles with Richie. Maybe get Richard to wear one as well. He can pretend to be you. If anyone
people
asks.
would believe it.
Yeah.
We are very similar, me and Rich, so I can imagine that people could become confused by that. I mean, it doesn't really make sense, does it, Phil, that somehow we've managed to miss out on you and me appearing at a doubles tournament? How has this come to pass?
Well, I think we talk about it in the not quite outro bit where I said you went ahead and bought tickets for it. And I'd assumed it was doubles and you were going with Joe. So I bought a ticket.
Yep.
Well, I didn't book tickets. I mentioned it to Richie. He went ahead and bought tickets. But yeah, it could have been you and me, but you're too busy playing with not Joe. You're doing a solo event instead.
I am. But we already talked about that. Let's just get on to the community questions, Phil. And I believe we will start things off with those people who are kind enough to support us on Patreon. Am I right?
Exactly. They get the priority because they love us the most.
Well, seemingly so. Absolutely. And obviously, thank you very much to all of our fantastic patrons who support us and enable us to make this project slightly more cost effective.
Certainly. We salute you.
We salute you. You are doing us a great service and we really appreciate it. So much so that we're now going to hear what you have to say on the topic of Warhammer Plus and offer our own, insights based therein.
Exactly. So I did this for Instagram as well, which then also gets transmuted via the internet to Facebook as well. So I did a little poll, which was basically, are you currently a subscriber? On Patreon, I could do more than 2 answers. So you had an option of yes, no, and I don't plan to, or no, but I might do a later date. We had 71% of people said yes, 28% said no, but they do plan to at a later date. So no one said no and they don't want to. So that was quite interesting. And then I asked them for some comments. What are their thoughts about it? Is it good value for money? So we'll start off and work our way down. We had Jack. He said, after September next year, I will more than likely subscribe. I suspect that's because there'll be more content on there.
I would assume as much, yes.
We had John. He said already had the app, so thought a few quid more for what they're offering seemed like a good deal. I've enjoyed the animations and the back rep so far, which is correct. We've enjoyed those as well. Stephen says, I think content so far is good quality, even though there's not loads of it. I'm happy so far, and as long as it continues at this standard, I'm happy. We got 2 more from Patreon, so I'll read those out. Joe says, so far the video...
Joe?
No, a different Joe.
He's too poor to support us on Patreon, to be fair.
He says, so far the videos seem reasonable, although the main Warhammer app is so clunky, I'm not sure how they plan to make up for that. And that's an interesting one of itself, that the 40k app does have a lot of errors in there. One of the ones, let's divert for a minute just to talk about Inceptors. We had a little conversation with Richie. He brought this fact up. It's like, how much do you think an Inceptor costs?
In points?
In points, yeah, per model.
I don't actually know. Is it 45 points, Phil?
Well, it could be. It could also be 40 points. So in the order of things, I can't remember how much it was in the actual Space Marine Codex, but they did an FAQ update to the Space Marine Codex, which made it 45 points. Then, shortly afterwards, the Minotaurs manual came out, and they made it 40 points. But they didn't remove the FAQ of the points change from the Space Marine Codex. So you would go, well, which one is correct? You could go the latest publication is the Minotaur Field Manual, so technically that should be 40 points. But if you go on the Warhammer app, they are still 45 points. So there you go. What's correct is the app the sort of most correct source and most up to date, which when it came to the Sisters Codex FAQ got the updates before the FAQ came out. So you could say the app should be the living source and fountain of all knowledge and correct points costs.
Yes.
But it could just be it's an error that they've not picked up on in the app. The app is wrong, and the Space Marine FAQ is wrong, and the Minotaur Field Manual is correct. So Battle Scribe, for example, still says 40 points because they're going off the Field Manual. So I mean, who knows what is correct? I suspect it is 40 points. That's meant to be what it is, and the Minotaur Field Manual is the latest thing. But that was also a print production, whereas the FAQ is a digital thing that could have been rolled out after. So the Minotaur Field Manual goes off to print, hasn't come out yet. The Space Marine FAQ comes out, fixes the points costs, and then the Field Manual comes out, technically overriding those points, but technically it also isn't the latest one that the designers gave. Basically, what needs to happen is they just need to put an FAQ into the Field Manual if they're going to update the points from 40 to 45, because that's where the latest points do reside, or they need to take out the FAQ where they adjust the points in the Space Marine FAQ. And they also just need to update the app to make sure it's correct based on whichever of those two sources are. That was a long ramble just to talk about how the app isn't actually that great.
Yes, the app is not flawless, it's fair to say.
Yeah. The last and final Patreon is from Luke, in brackets TT Journeys, which I believe is Tabletop Journeys. He's a follower of ours on Instagram.
I know Luke. He talks to me now and again over the messaging,
over the
things.
Socials. Yes.
Yeah, he seems like a lovely lad.
He says the Vindicare Assassin is probably around 25 quid to £30 for the model alone. So the extra 20 quid for the year, in brackets £1.66 a month. He's done maths. I like this. For premium access to the 40k app, plus whatever other content they want to push out, and the £10 voucher in October. I'm okay with that. One thing I'd like to see in the future is a Warhammer TV get a smartphone app, which, Luke, I hate to break it to you, they already do. It's not called, though, this is the confusing thing, Warhammer Plus. If you search for that, I believe you can't find it. It's called Warhammer TV. But if you do, it is the Warhammer, the official Warhammer Plus app, specifically for the Warhammer TV section. It's very confusing branding. You've got a subscription service called Warhammer Plus, but all the services off of it are sort of siloed, independent things. But then Games Workshop also has Forge World, so it's not like they don't have precedence for doing this kind of weird independent business branding thing that they love to do.
It's a strange old thing, but yes, as Phil said, it is what it is, and they do offer those apps. And yeah, I think that's all good and fair feedback. Thank you very much to our patrons there. Who's going to be next, Phil? The Instagram, Facebook, Rabble?
We'll head over to the Instagrams. I'm just going to see if I can dig out via the method of the archive the votes that we did. Oh, here it comes. So this week's poll: are you subscribed to Warhammer Plus? Yes is 59%. No is 41%. And if we do a quick little thing, that was about 100 people had voted in this one. And I also said, if you're a subscriber, how do you rate it for value for money? We had 64% say good, 36% say bad. So quite high, I think. So overall, more people saying that than they actually subscribe. So
Mm.
of those that do subscribe, hopefully voted in the second one and enjoyed it.
There you go.
And then on to the questions or comments. Cantor Blue, a regular, he says, I'm subscribed and it's not bad. I pay both AOS and 40k, so I have access to both apps, even though the 40k one is a joke. Really hoping for some AOS related stuff from Hammer and Bolter, as I enjoy AOS and want to see more of the lore. I totally agree with him. I think I can see why they've led with the 40k stuff, because that's obviously the bigger system.
Cash cow.
Exactly, but it would be good to also promote it to have more AOS content on there. And as I said earlier, if you're only into AOS, then you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. But if you were only into AOS, the Warhammer Plus really isn't for you at the moment in terms of the video content. But I guess
you could watch the Age of Sigmar CG trailer over and over and over again,
and the one battle report that they've put out for it. It'll be interesting to see what they do next week, whether they alternate 40k and AOS. So effectively, if you're into 40k, you only get two a month, or will they do? To me, it should be they should do one of each system every week. Like that isn't really a big ask in terms of a company of their size, in terms of what they're trying to do, what they should be able to put out.
Yeah, of course. Hopefully they get into a regular cadence with it as they start to sort of get into the rhythm of it. I'm sure it's been a rush behind the scenes to kind of get what they've got ready, and they'll get there. It's all going to improve, I sincerely believe.
Yeah,
but it's a reasonable starting point.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Next one is F-Cool Ice Cream Truck. I hope he's enjoying wearing his Lookout Sir t-shirt, because I do believe he did buy one.
What a legend.
Exactly.
Thank you, mate.
Exactly. He says, signed up as already have the app. They maybe should have dropped more content in the first couple of weeks, as it's a little bit light. Happy with everything on there. Just wish there was more. After taking off the free model, £10 voucher, and cost of the app, it only works out to be around £15 for the year. What I don't understand is why they haven't added a showcase section to promote the model range. Cheap to make and basically just one big advert. What does he mean by that, do you think? Like a videos of the models? Or do you think like, I'm watching a battle report, click here to buy this army or those models?
I just think he wants, slow motion footage of miniatures to sexy music.
To spinning around. I mean, to be fair, they sort of do that at the beginning of a battle report and it looks awesome. So I would almost be quite happy with some of that. And
I will say this, though. We've got conflicting maths between Luke and
Ethical Ice Cream.
Ethical Ice Cream. We've got conflicting maths. Ethical Ice Cream's £15 for the year, works out at £1.25 a month. Whereas Luke has quoted us £1.66. Who do we trust in these dark times?
I don't know. Get a statistician or mathematician on the case and let us know what the correct amount is. There might be a prize for getting it correct.
There is no prize. Unless you've got something worth giving. What are you offering, Phil?
Well, next month I'll probably have a Blood Angels / Death Watch enamel pin to give away, because I really couldn't care less about that. So
good. Move along.
Right, 2-Bit Paints. There's some long ones here, of which 2-Bit Paints is one of them. He says, I subbed. Issue I have is the Vault and the Army app are separate, and it's not all in one. The Army Builder is still crap and full of bugs. I presume we can say the word, can't we?
Well, you've said it twice now, so I hope so.
It's either been beeped out or not. Who knows?
Thanks for the extra work.
It's full of bugs, but I do use it a lot to get a feel for a list. I've never used Battlescribe. I'm a pen and paper man. Wow, that's proper hardcore. That's Iron Man mode, as they say. It still irritates the hell out of me. Digital codexes are not a thing. On Warhammer Plus specifically, the battle reports are really well produced. The animations were a pleasant surprise. I wasn't expecting them to be that good. Bound for Greatness is just awesome. Was that the second one in the library?
Yeah, no, Bound for Greatness is the library one, yeah.
Your favourite.
Yes, indeed. I support
Uh,
that statement.
Angels of Death, I have a real issue with the lip syncing and the Space Marine animations in general. Fair enough. The atmospheric guff is great though, like the bit where the cherubs are arming the Space Marines and the shots of the bridge servitors. Yeah, that's all really cool actually. The vault stuff is good. I'd like to see some older White Dwarfs though. Totally agree. I think once they've ironed out the army app issues and get into the swing of content creation for Warhammer Plus, it's going to be a pretty decent product. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. I think there's a lot of potential there that, again, as I say, I think things are definitely going to improve.
Yeah, I see where a lot of people have said, like, why isn't it all in one place in terms of an app? And to me, it's
I
like
get that.
for the Vault and for Warhammer TV, I could sort of understand that being the case. I think the Army Builder 40k app really does need to be separate because it's like a totally different system. And even in terms of who they said they partnered up with for the videos, it's like that's a specific video provider. So I imagine all the user interface is kind of a bit generically templated, where they've sort of outsourced the systems for that. So they can't easily suddenly tie that into a magazine PDF viewer because the company just won't have that kind of functionality. So I understand why it's all separate, even if that's a bit frustrating for people. Yeah. We've got Zladon Cole. He says it's worth it just for the back issues of White Dwarf. My partner is a bit annoyed by how much space my copies are taking up everywhere. That could have been written by me.
Indeed. A man after your own heart there, as it goes.
Yeah,
But,
I think it is one of those things where the more recent copies of White Dwarf I can safely get rid of because they are completely replicated digitally. As we talked about before, the things like the Gathering Storm books I'll probably still keep just because of a nice rules section which haven't been included. So for those, I'm more inclined to keep them, but White Dwarfs I can literally just chuck in the bin.
next question.
There's a couple more on Instagram, but let's move over to the Facebook. So let's give the Facebook some love. We can't hog it all, can we, on the Instagram? So, oh my god, 12 comments. Right, we got a lot. So Matt, he says, I'm a subscriber and I mainly subscribe for Lawmaster and Vault content. I rather enjoy the animations, though some have been vocal about not liking the animation style for Hammer and Bolter. Boo earns. I added that bit on. Honestly, the model and the
I was going to say, someone else using Boo earns is incredible.
Yeah,
obviously not.
Honestly, the model and the Vault were enough to get me interested, and it's only going to gain value over time. That said, people adopting it next year are probably going to love it a lot more since there'll be more to binge on. Yeah, that's kind of what we said as well. Like if you want to be really stingy in terms of your money and value for money, just wait, sign up next year, and you could just sign up for a month and you'll get loads of value for money. Jake says, I really want to like this service, but as it stands, there isn't much, and the big show they have, Angels of Death, isn't an art style I care for, and the sound seems off. It's just short episodes, then 20 minutes on for the second episode. It's just too short, less than 20 minutes. So yeah, for the second episode. I'm still eagerly awaiting the Lawcast show. The Lawcast video came out this week, which I've watched. It's very good.
Nice.
2 thumbs up.
Cool. I haven't watched it yet. I will give it a watch, and I will share my opinions at some other point.
Should we do one more?
Please, let's have one more.
We're going to go with Tristan. Well done, Tristan. You made the last cut. He says, I think it's always going to be a balancing act for early subscribers. For me, there's enough with the animations we have. Angels of Death seems like a reliable weekly episode at the moment, plus battle reports, masterclass, and coming this week, the lore show. For others, it might not be a great proposition yet, he says in big bold letters. One extra value thing I've noticed is that the White Dwarf library through Warhammer Plus is going to be uploaded all the way to June 21. Now we just need to get them to go backwards into the archives as well. That's something I iterated earlier on. Having access to the latest ones, especially if you're not a White Dwarf subscriber, is fantastic. But yeah, I really want to see like some old issues going all the way back. Even if they just started going back to the sort of present issues backwards, I would be fine with that. But personally, I would like it if they go, here's some from the 90s, here's some from the noughties, just give us a couple of interesting time periods from which to plunge the depths of the White Dwarf archives.
Yeah, I think that would be amazing. I really look forward to the inevitable release of more historical content, because I think that's really where the really exciting stuff dwells. I think being able to look back and be presented with issues, and obviously I'm sure there are people out there with nostalgia for the stuff from the 80s, but I'm really interested in obviously most of the literature from kind of the period of time of 95 to 2000, for example. Certainly the period of time around 98, where it would obviously be very heavily focused on the release of 3rd edition. I'd love to dive back into some of that and see like the releases that they're focusing on at that time. I think obviously so much of the iconic IP that is 40k was so well established in 3rd. The multi-part Space Marine kits, the then kind of establishing of the new Orc aesthetic, where they introduced the new War Boss model and the new plastic boys.
Was it 3rd edition where they did the bright box colors, where it's like a big blue color? Is that 2nd edition?
That was 2nd edition, yeah. So 2nd edition was with all the bright colors. 3rd edition, they got very, very kind of grim dark with it all, but they released so many kind of like kits and miniatures that went on to really well establish the overarching kind of look and feel of 40k. I mean, 3rd edition heralded the release of so many kind of iconic kits that have to an extent stood the test of time, although they are now obviously undergoing a series of tweaks and reworks to obviously account for more modern modeling practices. But you got the new Rhino kit, the new Land Raider kit, you got the new Land Speeder kit, you've got the release of the now Drakari, we've got all sorts of stuff in 3rd edition. It's just being able to sort of see that and track that back and look through those articles from sort of 98 to 2001, I think it would. I can't remember when 4th edition came out. I feel like it was like 2001, 2002, but being able to sort of track back through that and see that period of time would be awesome.
Yeah, I think what would also be cool is if they actually gave us not just the White Dwarf issues, but the other magazines that they did. So there was like Fanatic, there was Citadel Journal. I think there was a couple of other like sort of spin-offs as well, mostly to do with different specialist games. So those, I remember collecting Citadel Journal especially because I was like playing Blood Bowl and Necromunda and stuff back in those days. So yeah, being able to see those again, I think would be really, really special. I would love it if they did digital versions of old rules, like release More Time, for example, as a digital copy. I can't see them ever doing that because they're like, that's specific IP, it's rules, it's a game, we're not going to do that. But I kind of would love it if they did.
They used to do loads of like really cool old White Dwarf one-off games as well, though. I remember there was the Orc Brewhouse Brawl.
Oh, I thought was that not like Bugman's, or was it an Orc?
No, it was I think it was sort of Gorka Morka themed, but it was like It was you use orc boys and fight in this kind of barroom brawl, and you basically had like random kind of assorted weapons, which were mostly stools and bottles of grog and things.
Brilliant.
And yeah, it was a really fun little game, to its credit.
Yeah, I think White Dwarf's always been renowned for doing kind of little games like that. I sort of remember around the time when they did, was it the Renegade Knights box set, that where you get an Imperial Knight versus a Renegade Knight, and it had a mini game. It was its own sort of game, but pretty much everyone bought it for the terrain and the kits. But in the corresponding White Dwarf, there was like an extra game around it, but it was all using a card mechanic. So you would get a deck of regular cards and draw. And I think that was to do with like your hit locations of which bit of the knight you would be hitting, because it had like a template very reminiscent, I believe, to what was it would have been second edition 40k, where you had those side view profiles and you could randomly hit a location. So they did a similar thing for that with this night game as well.
Sweet. All right, cool. Well, there we go. That there is our community question segment. Thank you to everyone who took the time to engage and leave questions. For all those that we weren't able to answer directly via this podcast segment, we will endeavor over the days between now and the release of this podcast to respond to all of you on social media, so that you at least have some kind of
closure
response from us. Exactly. Nothing worse than throwing opinions out into the void and getting nothing back in return. So we'll do our part and make sure that we respond to all in text form. But yeah, cool, man. So that's that, I reckon. What do you think we're going to talk about next week, Phil?
Do you know what? I don't actually know. It's like I've got Kill Team now, so I want to read through that, but I think I need a bit more than a week to digest the rules. So I think we need
to play some games for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind reading the rules and then giving our like initial opinions on it, and then playing some games.
No, I think we need to play it, mate. If we're gonna give opinions on it, I think
fair enough.
Watching stuff on the internet and reading the rules feels hokey.
I know. I've discovered a slight flaw though. So I bought a kind of split down version off of eBay because I didn't really want the models or the terrain, partly due to like the amount of space I have in my house and the shed for models, and also being realistic with what I can build and use. So it's like the orcs and the terrain, well, cool, I don't actually need. But I haven't bought the compendium yet. And it's like, and while I have Krieg models, I don't have like a Krieg medic or a spotter. I mean, I could potentially recreate the Krieg kill team using my resin models. Like it's doable, but the specialists might be a bit hard in places to try and make out. But I'm sure I could come up with something. I've got an engineer with a demo charge. He could be what looks like a grenadier with a demo charge, for example. So I could do that. But then I was looking through the rules, and the missions that they give you all use the specific terrain from the kit, obviously, because that's the terrain that comes in it. So my point is, it would be quite difficult to play the missions without the terrain, which I don't know if you bought. So, I mean, you can always sort of replicate what they've got, like, oh, this is a ruin, so we swap that Orky ruin out for, Imperial.
Is that
ruin.
entirely accurate, Phil? I feel like we need to go away and actually research that statement, because I'm pretty sure there are generic missions in there for all scenarios.
Well, so in the Octarius book, which is the one...
yes, the Octarius book, no, but in the actual core rules, there are generic missions for all.
Yeah, okay, then I think that bit would be fine, because I think, with that one, you take turns placing terrain or something, if I recall correctly. Don't quote me on that.
Potentially. I've not read the rules yet.
But yes, I think the Octarius one is specifically using the orc terrain. However, I was trying to read the missions, and it doesn't actually seem to specify that you have to use the orcs and the Krieg kill teams, but you definitely need to use the terrain. So I think we need to have a little bit of a read through, work out what needs to do. I've got a really cool Renegade Chaos kill team that I created for the last edition of Kill Team. I would love to run them in some manner. So to do that, I potentially could run them as the Krieg if there's suitable specialist sort of similarities, because they've all auto guns, which is effectively las guns, so that could work fine. But yeah, I was trying to look through online when people were talking about the compendium, what I could marry them up to. So I could run them as cultists, but then I lose some of the flavor of the models. I could run them as gene stealer cultists, which is what I was looking at doing for Kill Team of Old, because then I can represent the different weapon loadouts with the correct ones, or maybe just standard guard because they've got loads of weapon options. So maybe that would be the option.
Indeed, mate. Well, let's put some work in. We'll get around to playing a game at some point. I'll come up to Oxford and sling dice in your kitchen or something. It'll be a lovely time.
Oh, that'd be great.
Might come out during like a weekday or something. We'll just swing by and we'll see what it's like.
Yeah, let's give it a go.
Awesome, man. All right. Well, until then, whatever it is we do next week, I guess we'll figure it out between now and then. But until then, goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.